Chapter 4440. And Wushuang looked at the old man's back view strangely. What's going on? Was I hallucinating? Why do I feel that this weird old man keeps calling you old? Does he think that you are very old? Yes. And Wushuang, third young master, Fu said with a smile. The crown princess has inherited the position of the second-generation sect master of the Xuanji sect. I'm afraid that Senior Hao Guang thinks that the crown princess just looks young. Everyone, they really did not know what to say. However, according to common sense, this was indeed the case. In the Divine Lands, very few female cultivators of the young crown princess age could reach the immortal state. Not to mention the biased heavenly Tao, even among the talented juniors in the family, there were very few who could reach the immortal state at this age. It was no wonder that Senior Hao Guang would think this way. No one thought of correcting Hao Guang's mistake. They just watched in silence and watched. Swoosh! The venerable peach blossom immortal pulled at one end of a wooden vine on the wall of the cave. I'll go up first. If there's no problem, you can come up, he said, and looked back at Emolien, who was frowning silently. All right, don't think about it. Seeing him like this, the venerable peach blossom immortal could not help but roll his eyes. Who asked us to be so unlucky? We just got out of the realm of misfortune and accidentally fell into a pit. When the realm of misfortune broke and they both fell out, they should have been out of danger. Unfortunately, the place where they fell was a huge sinkhole. It was a man-eating sinkhole. A terrifying whirlpool pulled them down and dragged them into the depths of the cave in the blink of an eye. There were countless small caves of various sizes. The two wandered around for a long time and found that it was like a maze. If they could look down from above, they would definitely find this interesting place. There were tens of thousands of small caves connected to small caves. At first glance, they were densely packed like a beehive. However, the most interesting thing was that their divine senses were blocked. Oh, they could not fly. Haha. Therefore, they could not fly up and see the general situation of this place clearly. Therefore, a certain peach blossom suggested that he should climb up first to see what was going on. The two of them did not know what kind of damned place this was. Since it was such a trap, they naturally carried a trace of vigilance as they moved. Both of them had been fooled for no reason, so their moods were naturally not good. Will Jojo be anxious? Emolien asked in a low voice. Yes, it's definitely urgent. Aren't we anxious too? The venerable peach blossom immortal tapped his foot lightly and pulled on the winding vines, climbing all the way up. He stretched out a hand and waved at him. Wait for me. Emolien raised her head to look at him. This fellow's speed was very fast. In just a short while, he had already crawled until he was only a black dot. Prince Emo tried to contact Little Tree, but to no avail. Since even divine sense could be blocked, it was obvious that external objects could not be contacted. With his consciousness sealed, he couldn't even summon Little Seven. Prince Emo could only stand at the bottom of the cave wall and pace back and forth, counting mushrooms. He was extremely frustrated. Suddenly, Emolien heard a series of shattering noises. In the nick of time, he dodged to the side. He saw a slender white figure suddenly descend from the sky. Just as he was about to crash headfirst into the ground, Crown Prince Emo reluctantly went up to give him a kick out of camaraderie. The venerable peach blossom immortal staggered and swayed. He barely stabilized himself. Why did you kick me? Chapter 4441. Emolien rushed forward, summoned Raven Moon, and stabbed at his shoulder. He-Chun hurriedly turned his head to take a look, only to see that His Highness the Crown Prince's hand was extremely fast. In a split second, Raven Moon had picked up a wisp of ghostly fire on his shoulder and flung it at the cave wall. A sharp sound came from the green fire, as if something was about to fly out of the fire. Ma Shurchin suddenly threw a seed over. Under the rapid growth of the wood spirit, the seed sprouted roots, branches, and leaves, growing into a man-eating flower with a mouth full of saw teeth. It swallowed the green fire into its stomach. It chewed everything clean, along with the thing in the fire. Then, the man-eating flower drooped its head, and the entire flower disintegrated along with the wood spirit. Only a small puddle of green juice was left on the ground. Prince Mo withdrew his raven moon and silently took a few steps back. The heart-devouring worm of nether fire. Pichen was a little stunned and turned to look at Mo Lien. The latter nodded slightly and muttered to herself for a moment. It should be. Don't these things live on the bodies of dead people? The venerable peach blossom immortal hurriedly took off his outerwear and threw it far away, a trace of disgust appearing on his face. It was so disgusting. He had wanted to take an outerwear from his inner world to change into, but the moment he moved, he realized he was done for. He couldn't open his inner world. Without divine sense, he naturally couldn't open his inner world. He had long forgotten about this. Looking at the outerwear he had thrown to a corner of the cave wall and landed on the damp ground, the venerable peach blossom immortal looked as if the sky was about to collapse. He wore a plain white inner garment and looked back at Mo Lien with a blank expression. That sad little expression was simply so unbearable. He finally understood why Sir Jojo liked to carry a small floral bag every time he went out for training. That was because the inner world wasn't omnipotent and could be sealed and blocked from time to time. Mo Lien was speechless. After thinking for a while, she reached into her clothes and took out a storage talisman and threw it into the air. After rummaging through the storage talisman, he took out a black robe and threw it to the senior immortal. Only then did he put away his resentful expression and put on his outer robe, muttering, "Jojo is biased. Why do you have a storage talisman and I don't?" Mo Lien said expressionlessly, "You have at least 20 or 30 storage talismans of this size with you. You took them all into your inner world. Who are you blaming?" The venerable peach blossom immortal was speechless. This fellow's figure was similar to Mo Lien's. Naturally, he could wear the crown prince's outer robe. After changing into a clean and fresh set of ink-colored clothes, a certain someone said gloomily, "If only Jojo was here. Then he could enter the star domain to wash up and change into clean clothes." No, Jojo would probably be in trouble here too. After all, this strange place blocked the consciousness. Whoever came here would be in trouble. Thinking of this, he couldn't be bothered to dwell on it. He turned to look at Mo Lien and said with a serious expression, "When I climbed up just now, I felt an irresistible force." Mo Lien raised her eyebrows. "An irresistible suction force pulled me down. It felt like after we fell out of the realm of misfortune, we were pulled into the sinkhole by an irresistible force." It was exactly the same. Prince Mo frowned slightly. What should we do? This was hilarious. Even Hu Shirchun didn't know what to do. Now, Prince Mo was asking him he could only use a relaxed tone to comfort him without much sincerity. Don't panic. There will be a way to solve it. At least the situation wasn't the worst yet. Chapter 44-42. The venerable immortal was unreliable, but Mo Lien was still reliable. At least, Prince Mo's storage talismans, food, drinking water, and all sorts of resources were all available. Also, who knew if it was because he had been assimilated by his wifey? Prince Mo had always liked to stuff talismans in his arms, waist, and sleeves, so he wasn't so poor that it made one's hair stand on end. He still had hope. The venerable immortal looked at him enviously and swore, "Next time, I'll stuff more things on me too. I definitely won't collect them all into my inner world." Actually, this was his Xiao's fault. This fellow had always lived in Xiao's star domain and had everything ready for him. He didn't need the venerable immortal to prepare anything. He only needed to call Qiuqiu for whatever he wanted if Mo Lien didn't come down with him this time, and he was the only one left in this ghastly place the venerable immortal couldn't help shuddering. Who knew when he would recover his divine sense? Although with his cultivation, he wouldn't starve to death or thirst even if he didn't eat or drink for a year, but he didn't want to become an unkempt old scavenger covered in filth. At this thought, the venerable immortal couldn't help shuddering again. All the hair on his body stood on end. "Since going up doesn't work, then we'll go down," Mo Yin said after a moment of contemplation. She took out several black beads from her storage talisman. "What are these?" "Earth fire grenades, a type of concealed weapon." Prince Mo didn't have the mood to continue talking nonsense with Shichun and threw out 2 earth fire grenades. Once the objects landed in the corner of the cave wall, they immediately exploded with a huge rumble. The venerable peach blossom immortal blinked. Huh, what a powerful firearm. It's not affected in the slightest after landing in the water. It must be that brat Duan Yu who did it. Mo Lien chuckled in response to the venerable peach blossom immortal's question. A small hole was blasted out of the cave wall, and the area they were in collapsed several feet. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that the earth fire grenades had blasted out a small hole in one of the tens of thousands of beehives. What's the point of blowing it up here? Wouldn't it still explode into another cave? They had been walking in this place for at least 2 hours. They had been going around and around all kinds of caves of various sizes. Are you stupid? Mo Lien said coldly. We're going around in circles in the cave. There's no need to blast it open. The venerable peach blossom immortal immediately understood. He widened his eyes slightly and asked, You want to blast open a passageway? Damn, you're really fierce. Looking at his refined and elegant appearance, as well as his elegant and handsome appearance, he was like an orchid tree in the wind. Sir Venerable Immortal tried his best to pin those gentle and refined words on Mo Lien, and he finally concluded with one word: savage. But this guy was actually so ferocious, which was completely inconsistent with his appearance. Although this earthly fire lightning is useful, do we have that many earthly fire lightnings? Reverend Immortal lowered his voice slightly. He silently glanced at the black box the Crown Prince took out from his storage talisman. When he opened the box, he saw several dozen rows of earthly fire lightning neatly arranged inside. Duan Yu can actually give you so many? The venerable peach blossom immortal looked at him in astonishment. Since when did the relationship between the two of them become so good? Weren't they love rivals? Weren't they political enemies? Didn't they dislike each other and feel uncomfortable if they didn't exchange a few words when they met? Chapter 44-43. I did, Mo Lien said calmly. The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes widened. You used Jojo to exchange? I'm gonna tell Jojo. You used her to exchange for earth fire grenades. You bastard, you're not a good person. Scram. Mo Lien glanced at him, then threw out 2 more earth fire grenades. She said nonchalantly, I used my space to refine weapons in exchange. Oh, boom. The cave continued to collapse. The ground in front of them opened up and another cave appeared. Stay behind and keep your distance. Let me know if I stray off course. The venerable peach blossom immortal nodded. All right. The two of them walked in a straight line, using earth fire grenades to blast open a tunnel. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely be amazed, right? They couldn't get out even after going around in circles, right? Then they would blast open a straight line and see who could stop them. Lord Jojo didn't know that the 2 idiots were still busy blasting open the walls underground. Everyone felt that the ground would occasionally shake, but the tremors weren't too big. Therefore, no one raised any questions despite their worries. Second Sect Master. The old man stepped out of the inner room excitedly, holding a pile of defensive spirit weapons in his hands. Take a look and see if these are to your liking. Second Sect Master, these are for you. The old man stuffed a ring into her hands, his face full of pride. These are the best defensive divine weapons I've ever refined. Second Sect Master, keep them with you at all times. I guarantee your safety. Xiaomu swept him a glance and nodded before hugging the large pile of things the old man handed over to her. Were you the one who caused those netherfire, heart-devouring worms outside? The old man hurriedly shook his head. Of course not. Why would I create such disgusting things? They escaped from the old bastard's mystic realm. As he spoke, he scratched his head in embarrassment. I've been to the Fecta mystic realm several times, but every time I entered, the entrance was completely different from the last time. As he spoke, he placed several handmade maps in Arbor's hands, which were holding a pile of defensive spiritual artifacts. These are the places I've been to. The last time I went in, I accidentally triggered a mechanism and a group of heart-devouring worms flew out. They even followed me out of the secret realm. Where are the corpses? The corpses should belong to the adventurers who came to the island to train over the years. Hao Guang curled his lips and said, "They always say that there are treasures in the holy land of Snowy Ridge, including the Dragon King's secret treasure. Actually, the Snow Mountain Range is completely barren. There's nothing there at all. The only possibility is that the nearby sea region is connected to a mysterious abyss of the sacrificial sea. There might be secret treasures in the Fecta secret realm, but are they something that humans can take out? How many people go in and die? They can't come out at all." The old man looked at Arbor worriedly. "Second Secmaster, I was wrong. I just wanted to trick those juniors to go in and suffer. I didn't expect you to go in as well. It's best if we don't go in if we can. That old bastard Fecta is not easy to deal with." Arbor nodded, but his expression was firm. "Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. I'll make sure that the number of people who go in will come out." Hao Guang glared at him. "Second Secmaster, I'm just worried about you." The others were none of his business. Arbor patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry." Chapter 44-44. Why do I feel so uneasy? Mi Guang thought. Lord Saintess. Crown Princess. Princess Wushuang. Third Young Master. A cacophony of voices came from behind the crowd. Arbor didn't even need to look back to know that the youths of the Phoenix Clan and the Purple Forest Guards had finally arrived. "They're here. They're here. Don't push." More and more people gathered. Arbor couldn't help but facepalm. There are too many people. Arbor looked expressionlessly at Ming Yasi and the others. The consequences will be unimaginable if chaos ensues. "Tell us what to do." Crown Prince Rong quickly nodded. "We'll just do as you say." Arbor glanced at the crowd. "Let them stay here for now. I'll go to the beach with Wushuang and wait. No, I want to go with them." Crown Prince Rong shook his head and refused decisively. What a joke. If his emperor knew that he had left the little ancestor alone in such a dangerous situation, how could he expect to live a good life in the future? Arbor glanced at him and nodded. "All right then, make arrangements for them." While speaking, Feng Zhangqing and the others finally managed to squeeze over. They wiped their sweat and asked, "Why are there so many people?" "Changqing, come with me to the Fecta secret realm. Zhangfei, take the clansmen and the Purple Forest Guards and stay here temporarily to wait for my big brother." No matter how big the drill ground was, it still felt congested with 30,000 people crammed into it. Feng Zhangfei glared at him. "I want to go too. Don't mess around." Feng Zhangfei hurriedly comforted his jumpy younger brother and said in a low voice, "Stay here and take care of the clansmen." Feng Zhangfei curled his lips unwillingly. "The spirit energy on this deserted island is quite dense," Arbor said calmly. "It's also very spacious. When a matter is settled, we might as well train here." He felt that it was better than Leisha Island. Most importantly, she had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Wasn't it reasonable for her to establish her own clan? This place was neither close nor far from the Forgotten River Dragon clan's territory. They were separated by a snowy ridge. Presumably, the Forgotten River Dragon clan wouldn't be so shameless as to visit this deserted island. All right. Without waiting for Crown Prince Rong's reply, Ming Yasi nodded with a cold expression. Wasn't it just requisitioning an island in the River of Forgetfulness? It didn't matter to him where he requisitioned. "Come over here." Arbor moved to the side and walked out of the crowd. Many people who were going to the secret realm quickly gathered around him. Ollie glanced in that direction and snorted as he turned around to face the soldiers. "What are you looking at? Don't you have anything better to do?" All of them were cultivating on the ground. "It's still early. We have to stay here for a few more days." And Wushuang, Fu San, Feng Changqing, and Rong Qing stood together and whispered a few words. On the other side, young Master Ding and Ming Yasi looked at each other in disgust, then hurriedly turned their gazes elsewhere. Arbor distributed a large pile of defensive spirit artifacts that Senior Scattered Light had forged to the people present. When he passed them to Dingya, his hand paused slightly. He asked expressionlessly, "Are you going to stay here and wait for Sikong Fulling?" "No need." Young Master Ding giggled. "That girl Fulling is very clever. She should be here soon." Most importantly, a place like the Fecta's secret realm is so interesting just thinking about it. How can I miss out on the fun? Arbor tossed the items into his hands, turned around, and glanced at the 6 people. Let's go. Chapter 44-45. How could Senior Scattered Light be at ease? When he heard that they were about to set off now, he hastily ran out of the inner room and shouted repeatedly, Second Sect Master, this subordinate will bring you there. Be careful, there's a realm of misfortune on this island that can kill without spilling blood. If you fall inside, you'll be even more troublesome than that old geezer Tyenjeezy. That was a natural realm of misfortune. It was possible to break through it with humans, but a natural mystic realm, seriously, there was nothing more to say. Arbor expressionlessly looked at Senior Scattered Light. Ding Yun couldn't resist chuckling and said in a low voice, Senior Scattered Light, don't worry for nothing. That whatever realm of misfortune, it's already, let's go. The little stoic raised her small fist and directly cut off young Master Ding's nonsense. With a serious expression, she turned around and strode toward the tunnel outside the Kar's cave. Scattered Light glanced at the little stoic in confusion before turning to look at young Master Ding, who was holding back his laughter. He snorted and said with a glare, Hurry and follow. Arbor's group of 7 followed Senior Scattered Light, who was nagging as he led the way, out of the underground Kar's cave and walked through the long underground tunnel. After 30 minutes, they finally emerged from the surface, and a vast expanse of snow reappeared before their eyes. Hao Guang said complacently, Only this old man can bring you out of this place so quickly. If you wander around inside, you might not be able to walk out even after several days and nights. Let me tell you, this isn't the most complicated terrain. If one of you happens to fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves, that's really bad luck, As if he thought of something amusing, this old man actually started laughing out loud on his own halfway through his speech. Arbor kept a straight face and asked without batting an eyelid, What do you mean? After laughing heartily for a while, the old man couldn't resist patting his head and saying, I forgot that you guys are very lucky and didn't fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves. That place is truly troublesome. Caves are connected to caves, and there are tens of thousands of caves of various sizes. The main thing is that divine senses are blocked, and you can't even use your inner world. If you go to that ghastly place, there's no escape from bad luck. If you're lucky, you might be able to escape from there after 3 to 5 months. Then what about bad luck, Senior? Princess Wushuang asked curiously. Bad luck? You can stay here for a long time. The old man stroked his beard and said proudly, Maybe after 30 years, his wife will have run away with someone else, and he will still be counting mushrooms in that hole. Oh, that's not right. No matter how strong a cultivator is, if he doesn't eat or drink for 30 years, he probably won't be able to survive. The corners of Crown Prince Rong's mouth twitched. Senior, have you stayed in the 1,000 caves before? The old man blew his beard and glared at Crown Prince Rong. That's right. I did stay there for 3 months. He drew hundreds of maps. I'm finally out. Senior Scattered Light, who is good at drawing, revealed a boastful expression. You guys haven't been to that place before. If you have, you'll know how amazing one's wisdom is to be able to come out. Everyone couldn't bear to listen to his boasting and hurriedly interrupted. Senior, let's go to the beach quickly. If we miss the opening of the mystic realm, it won't be worth it. What's the rush? The old man rolled his eyes at them. Although the mystic realm opens these 2 days, how could it be so coincidental that it opens when you go there? Chapter 44-46. Arbor looked ahead expressionlessly and said coldly, What's there to brag about? You sealed your inner world for 3 months. You couldn't eat, drink, wash, or even change your clothes. When you came out, you were still a barbarian. The old man's expression twisted slightly. Thinking of the painful experience, he couldn't help but want to bang his head against the wall. In the past, he hated making spatial artifacts the most. But after this guy made a bunch of spatial artifacts and hung them on his waist. He didn't dare to be careless anymore. No matter how strong a cultivator was, when they sealed their inner world, they could only stare at their own consciousness and roll their eyes. The 7 of them followed the angry old man to the beach. Suddenly, they stopped and looked at the big ship on the beach with a surprised expression. Seeing the ship, Rong Qing seemed to have thought of something. "All right, senior, where's our previous ship? Did you hide it all?" Mi Guang snorted. "So many ships. Don't you find it annoying to have so many noisy ships parked there?" "I kept them all in the sealing ball." Everyone was silent. They looked at each other and moved their gazes to the ship on the beach. A ladder was put down from the ship. A group of people walked out and walked down the stairs. Arbor recognized at a glance that the girl walking at the front was the City of Shadows' 4th Miss, Mu Xiaoxue. The girl's face was beautiful and gentle. There was a mole at the corner of her eye. She didn't move like Sir Jojo. This weak little beauty was like a piece of paper that would be blown away by the wind. Even her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Arbor met her face to face, and his gaze froze. For some reason, every time Arbor saw this daughter of the City of Shadows' first city lord, Mu Jinghong, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. The girl was a year younger than him. Logically speaking, such a weak and fragile appearance wouldn't enter Sir Jojo's eyes. But now, he had a trace of curiosity. The 2 flower protectors, Gui Xuan and Zhao Yi, followed behind as expected. When everyone got off the boat, the 2 men, one in front and one at the back, held the corner of Mu Xiaoshue's dress while the other held Princess Xiaoshue's hand and led her down step by step. Arbor looked on expressionlessly, and Wu Shuang couldn't help but burst into laughter. And this is? Her memory was really bad. In fact, she should have seen the little princess of the City of Shadows before. "Crown Princess." Mu Xiaoxue came forward and bowed politely. Her voice was very gentle and amiable, like a feather brushing one's heart. Jojo asked stiffly, "Why are you here?" Before the little princess could answer, Zhao Yi was the first to get angry. "Crown Princess, we're not from China. You'd better be more polite." And Wu Shuang rolled her eyes. "How is my sister-in-law rude? You're thinking too much. Don't tell me we all have to be like you." Going up to your princess and holding her paws. Mu Xiaoxue patted the back of Zhao Yi's hand and said softly, "Senior brother Zhao, don't be angry. The crown princess didn't mean to target me. She's used to being so direct. It was fine when she didn't speak. Once she spoke, Rong Qing, Ding Yun, and Wu Shuang, and the others all showed an indescribable expression. Her voice was too soft and coquettish, as if her bones had been extracted. Everyone couldn't help but tremble. The crown princess doesn't know. In the morning, a trace of the divine domain flowed on the surface of the sea, and the aura of divine power spread. We followed it and came here. Chapter 44-47. Arbor was a little surprised and glanced at Mu Xiaoxue. "You?" Gui Xuan frowned. "That's us." "Why?" "There are more than 100 people in the City of Shadows. What can I do for you, Crown Princess?" Arbor glanced at him and didn't say anything else. In fact, it didn't matter to her whether these people came or not. In any case, everyone would have to rely on their own abilities to enter the mystic realm. She really couldn't be bothered with the affairs of other people. Some people are always high and mighty, but don't forget that this isn't the territory of the divine land. You can do whatever you want. A cold-faced young woman followed Mu Xiaoxue and the others down the stairs and shot a cold glance in Xiaomu's direction. "This is the Forgetting River. To the master of the Forgetting River, we and you are all outsiders. There's no difference." The woman stood beside Mu Xiaoxue and the others, her eyes full of provocation. She glanced at Arbor and then at Princess Wu Shuang, and Wu Shuang was dumbfounded. She looked the woman up and down. "Who are you? Why are you staring at us like that?" "You." Lin Miao was fuming with anger. She hadn't expected Princess Wu Shuang to not remember who she was. She had always remembered the evil that Princess Wu Shuang had done to her. She didn't expect that she didn't take her seriously at all. On the other side, Arbor thought to himself, Princess Wu Shuang's memory is so bad. This little girl was so pitiful. She was so young, yet she was suffering from teenage girl dementia. When she was free, Jojo should treat her properly. Fortunately, the awkward atmosphere didn't last long. Princess Wushuang's personal guard, and Yang, couldn't help but step forward and whisper, "Princess, you've seen this aunt on the street. Lin Myoer of the Lin family in Rome City. You even asked me to investigate her family." "Oh, is that so?" And Wushuang was still in a daze. Although she said "oh" a few times, it was obvious that she had long forgotten about the trivial matters of the Lin family of Fuzhou City. Lin Myoer sneered. "Do you think you're the only ones who know that there is a secret realm on this island?" Previously, the light on the surface of the sea increased greatly. The people nearby should have seen it. The deity domain is about to open, and the aura of divine power is everywhere. Soon, more and more people will gather here, and there will be an endless stream. You want to resist all the cultivators gathered here with just a few people? Lin Myoer laughed. "Don't joke around. Are you done with your nonsense?" And Wushuang retorted, "Do you think it's just a few of us? Let me tell you, we have 30,000 men." Lin Myoer rolled her eyes. Just because she was stupid didn't mean that Mu Xiaoxue was the same. Hearing this, Mu Xiaoxue's soft and fair face suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. She hurriedly asked, I heard not long ago that the elites of the 3 prefectures will gather at the River of Forgetfulness. Could it be that you are?" This girl looks like she has a brain." And Wushuang nodded. Her gaze swept over Lin Myoer's slightly darkened face with disdain. She deliberately sneered. "The Lin family in Rome City is really a small family. You haven't even heard of such big news. You..." Lin Myoer was so angry that she was about to step forward, but her sister Lin Jin'er pulled her arm. She stopped in her tracks and glared at Lin Jin'er angrily. Chapter 44-48. Lin Jin'er had suffered several losses at the hands of Arbor and already knew how powerful she was. Even the entire Lin family together was no match for the crown princess. How could she resist by herself? Seeing Lin Myoer glaring at her, she didn't care and stepped forward with a very polite smile. "Sorry for making a fool of myself. What my sister said just now is true. There is no lie." Lin Jin'er looked at Arbor and said, "The aura of the divine realm can be clearly felt in the nearby sea. I believe that in a moment, the cultivators who are training nearby will all rush over." Arbor looked disapproving and said, "Oh," ending the conversation completely. Everyone in the City of Shadows and the Lin family felt a little depressed. They originally wanted to mock the other party, but in the end, the 30,000 people scared all their words back. They could swallow their anger and be humble and say a few words to the other party, but in the end, the other party would completely dismiss them with a single word. There was nothing more infuriating than being ignored. Just like Lin Myoer, in her heart, she regarded the little crown princess as an imaginary enemy. But in the end, the person you regarded as an enemy didn't take you seriously at all. Lin Jin'er hurriedly stopped Lin Myoer, who still wanted to go forward and make a scene. She smiled slightly and looked at her sister with some warning in her eyes. "They're here." While they were talking, someone suddenly shouted. Arbor and the others looked up and saw more than a dozen flying spirit beasts carrying groups of people over. Hao Guang stroked his beard and looked over with disdain. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. There were so many people who didn't care about their lives. These people probably abandoned the ship midway and came here to follow the aura. They still had the salty and wet smell of the sea breeze on their bodies. Arbor withdrew his gaze and looked at Hao Guang. "You go back first." Mu Xiaoxue looked at Hao Guang curiously and asked softly, "May I know who this senior is?" Hao Guang glanced at the crowd and didn't have the intention to explain at all. The old man turned to Arbor and cupped his hands. "Second Sect Master, I'll go back first." Arbor nodded with an indifferent expression, similarly turning a deaf ear to Mu Xiaoxue's words. This kind of attitude didn't matter to others. However, in the eyes of the 2 flower protectors, Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan, it was truly intolerable. Such an innocent and adorable junior sister is courteously asking for your name, and you actually dare to not answer? This was simply intolerable. "Stop." Zhao Yi was the first to speak. What kind of attitude is this? At the same time, more than a dozen flying spirit beasts landed on the beach at the same time. About 100 people dismounted from the backs of the spirit beasts, one after another, and walked towards them. Among them were some juniors from aristocratic families who had come out to gain experience. They were escorted by their elders to join the fun. Most of them were mercenary groups and ordinary shouja who were adventuring everywhere in search of opportunities. Most of the people didn't recognize Crown Prince Rong, Ming Yasi, and the others, nor were they familiar with the people of the City of Shadows. Since they weren't familiar with each other, they didn't speak rashly and just maintained a wait-and-see attitude. Another 4 or 5 spirit beasts flew over and landed on the beach one after another. "Miao-er," a voice called out. Lin Miao turned to look and immediately smiled. "Isin, you're here too." "Big brother." Gu Isin quickly stepped forward. When she looked at Mu Xiaoxue, her eyes flashed slightly. "Miss Mu, big brother, what are you doing?" Chapter 44-49. Gu Isin glanced over suspiciously, only to see Gu Yishuan and Zhao Yi standing in front of a skinny old man. Their faces were filled with anger. Gu Yishuan only had time to take a glance at his younger sister before glancing away, still glaring at Hao Guang. Hao Guang was simply baffled and looked at the little stoic standing on the side. Is there something wrong with these people? Why are they blocking this old man's path? Arbor's expression was unperturbed, and she didn't even bother to blink. "Ignore them. Go." "You." Zhao Yi's face darkened, and he summoned his gray sword in the blink of an eye. Arbor, who had been ignoring them, gradually darkened her expression, and her voice as cold as ice slowly rang out. "You want to die?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they inexplicably felt a heavy pressure assault them. A portion of itinerant cultivators and mercenaries hastily retreated, their faces revealing incredulous expressions. This young lady in front of them actually made their chests constrict with just her aura, making them practically unable to breathe. They absolutely couldn't carelessly offend such a young lady with such outstanding cultivation. At least, those with discerning eyes immediately thought that the little stoic must be on good terms with this person. "Just say it if you want to die." Arbor beckoned, and the thunderclap sword abruptly landed in her hand. The sword suddenly lit up, and a trace of lightning slowly circulated on it. Zhao Yi instantly became vigilant, and he slowly took a step back with the spirit sword in his hand. Meanwhile, Gu Yishuan was enraged and took a step forward. "Don't tell me you want to commit violence in public. We're people from the City of Shadows. We're not under your control." "Senior brother Gu." Mu Xiaoxue hastily went up to stop him and nodded apologetically at Arbor. "Sorry. Senior brother is a bit irritable because he can't bear to see me wronged." Arbor looked at her strangely. The more she looked at her, the more she resembled a person. That person was also this gentle and soft all the time. She didn't even bear to speak loudly, as if she would trample ants to death if she breathed loudly. "Can you guys stay away from me?" The little stoic looked at them speechlessly. "My temper really isn't that good. When I get angry, I might not even be able to control myself." Everyone was speechless. "Also, Miss Amo, your voice is too soft. I can't hear you." "Pooh." Princess Wushuang was amused. She wished for nothing more than to pounce on the little stoic and hug her while shouting, "Great minds think alike." She had long had enough of this group of strange people. Your brother and sister are close to each other. Can't you find a secluded place and enjoy yourself alone? Why do you have to put on such a show in front of them? Who doesn't have a man with good looks and temperament by their side? Was there a need to show off like this? Bah! And Wushuang realized that she was thinking too much. She guiltily looked at Third Fu, who was standing beside her. Third young master, Fu sharply noticed the look his wife was giving him. He quickly turned his head and smiled at her. "Wife?" Princess Wushuang immediately turned her head around. Her face was inexplicably hot. This guy was getting more and more shameless recently. Ever since the betrothal ceremony, this guy started to indulge himself more and more. Every time he saw her, he would randomly call her wife and look at her with flirtatious eyes from time to time. This stinky, shameless guy. Hao Guang saw that his second-generation sect master was imposing and didn't look like someone who would suffer losses, so he relaxed. He turned his head and whispered a few words to her. Then, he turned around and led in Yang and the others toward the car's cave. Chapter 4450. However, they had only taken a few steps when they suddenly heard a huge tremor coming from the depths of the ground. The sound was so close that it seemed to have exploded under their feet. The huge impact made everyone's expression freeze slightly. The mercenaries and itinerant cultivators on the beach all showed a vigilant look and summoned their swords and sabers from their consciousness. Boom! The huge tremor came from under their feet again. The old man, scattered light, widened his eyes and looked into the distance in a daze. He saw that a huge hole had been broken in the ground by something, and thick smoke was coming out from it. It was so choking that everyone took a few steps back. Could it be that some giant beast was going to climb up from the bottom of the hole? Everyone's expression was solemn and cautious. They tightened their grip on the swords and sabers in their hands for no reason. Senior, and Yang could not help but call out, "Is there another guardian beast here?" Senior Scattered Light looked at the hole in confusion for a while and racked his brains to think. Smoke was still billowing from the hole not far away, but nothing was climbing out. The old man quickly shook his head and said, "I've never heard of it." No, it was because he had lived here for so many years and he had never encountered any giant beast. There are indeed giant beasts in the Tianji mystic realm, but I have never released them. He would not go so far as to deceive them to such an extent. If all the big guys in the mystic realm were to be released, the old man could not help but shudder. He had not lived such a peaceful life all these years. Everyone thought so too. If the senior released something, he would definitely tell the second-generation leader in advance. After all, in the senior's heart, the second-generation leader was the most important. In the old man's eyes, even a strand of hair of the second-generation leader of the Xuanji sect was more precious than them. Boom, 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 boom. While everyone was whispering and asking each other, a few more tremors were heard. This time, they could not help but sway from side to side. Arbor glanced at the huge hole. He saw a familiar figure jump out from the hole. Then he spat twice and wiped the dust off his face. Immediately after, another person came out, his sleeves fluttering as he swept the thick smoke in front of him. Both of them were dressed in black robes. Their appearances were handsome and slender, but at this moment, their robes were stained with a lot of dust. A thick smell of smoke lingered around their bodies, making them look somewhat comical. Without waiting for the crowd to recover, they saw the two people walking like the wind, one in front and one behind in their direction. When they saw Sir Jojo's expressionless face, the two of them moved even faster, and in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of the little crown princess. Jojo, what a coincidence! A certain crown princess's small face was expressionless, and no one could see any other emotions. And Wu Shuang's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Oh my God, big brother! What's wrong with you, big brother? How did you climb out of that hole? Aha! Look at you, you look so pathetic." Could it be that Senior was right, and the two of you fell into the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves? Get lost. Mo Yin glanced speechlessly at the troublemaker Princess Wu Shuang, and threw a warning look at Third Fu. "Third young Master Fu, what did I do? You can't control your sister's mouth, so you're glaring at me?" Princess Wu Shuang did not know how to restrain herself and continued to laugh at her brother. Chapter 4451. It couldn't be helped. He was normally upright, clean, and handsome. It was rare to see him in such a sorry state. If she didn't properly dig at him, how could she live up to her venomous tongue? Ha. Shut up. Mo Yin irritably glared at his younger sister, who was dragging him down, before turning to look at his wife with bright eyes. His wife was still the best. She never mocked her husband. Arbor imperceptibly took a step back. His pitch-black eyes swiveled as his gaze roamed over the two people. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately widened his eyes and whipped Mo Yin's arm with his finger. "She's despising us. Did you see that?" She retreated. She's despising you. You were contaminated by the deep fire heart gnawing worm just now. Stinky. Mo Yin rebuked the venerable peach blossom immortal with a frosty expression before taking a step forward. Sir Jojo stood there stiffly without moving. He blinked, his gaze landing on the dust on the crown prince's long hair. Then he suddenly took out something like a rag from his inner world. The little stoic raised her hand to wipe the crown prince's head. Everyone, Prince Mo silently twitched his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pulled down his wife's hand. Jojo, do you know that rotten peach blossom and I are really miserable? Right, it's really miserable, my Jojo. I want to take a bath right now. I want to change clothes. The venerable peach blossom immortal hastily clamored behind them. Before Arbor could reply, old man Hao Guang, who was standing nearby in a daze, suddenly jumped up and shouted while pointing at the two people, You two. Hey, you two brats, could it be that you really came out from the Thousand Caves? Who is this person? The venerable peach blossom immortal turned to look at the jumping old man and asked in confusion. Arbor waved the rag at him. Wipe? The venerable immortal was speechless. He caught the rag the little fellow threw and wiped the dust on his sleeves. Arbor pointed at Hao Guang. Xuanji School's first-generation disciple, Hao Guang. She didn't lower her voice when she spoke, so everyone around heard her. A person who looked like an elder of an aristocratic family quickly walked out of the crowd and saluted with his hands cupped. Hao Guang, is it the legendary artifact master, Senior Scattered Light? Hao Guang ignored him and glared at Mo Yin and the venerable peach blossom immortal. Brat, didn't you hear what I said? How did you get out just now? The venerable peach blossom immortal raised his head and smiled at the old man. Didn't you see? Of course, it was blasted all the way out. Hao Guang looked at them in astonishment. 1,000 caves? If you're talking about the Karst Cave, then it should be. The venerable peach blossom immortal thought for a while and nodded. What did you fall in? How long did it take you to come out? The old man asked anxiously with a cold expression. Mo Yin looked at the old man who was jumping up and down. Her expression was very calm. It took more than 2 hours. Impossible. The old man immediately waved his hands agitatedly. His skinny old face was filled with disbelief. Absolutely impossible, impossible. To think that this old man, who is so smart and skilled in drawing, spent more than 3 months in the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves before coming out. How could these two brats, how could it be? Impossible, absolutely impossible. The old man shook his head and waved his hands. He put his hands on his hips and shouted coldly at the two of them. Nonsense! How dare you lie to me? Tell me, how did you get out of the 1,000 caves in 2 hours? Tell me. Chapter 4452. What's going on? Is there something wrong with this old man? Why does he look like he's been dealt a huge blow? Mo Yin gazed at the old man strangely before explaining dryly. Using a type of firearm to blast open a straight path, and you'll come out. Old man! Exclamation point. Everyone, nonsense! 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 The old man flew into a rage and was about to scold them. Arbor said calmly, Senior, my husband was born smart. Just because you can't think of a solution doesn't mean he can't think of one too. Scattered Light instantly wilted. He turned around angrily and called to the dumbfounded and Yang and the others. Go, go, go. Why are you standing here? Let's go back to the cave. From the beginning to the end, the old man ignored the aristocratic family elder who walked up and greeted him eagerly. That aristocratic family elder's face stiffened. Xiaomu glanced at him before retracting her gaze. The venerable peach blossom immortal was baffled. What's wrong with that old man? What did we do to him when we came out of the 1,000 caves? His face was as black as a rock. How comical. And Wu Shuang was already squatting on the ground laughing. She looked up at Mo Yin and said, Senior Scattered Light spent more than 3 months in the 1,000 caves before coming out. Do you think he hates the two of you? Ha 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 ha. What a clear comparison of IQ. Ha 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 ha. Mo Yin and Ma Shichen were speechless. They had been through the 1,000 caves and knew how difficult it was inside. The old man couldn't open his inner world for 3 months. It was indeed very miserable inside. Arbor looked at Wu Shuang and the others expressionlessly. When this guy finished squatting on the ground and laughing, the little crown princess chuckled and nodded. Idiot! Princess Wu Shuang was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. She looked at the people around her and couldn't help but twitch her eyebrows. Sister-in-law, your smile came a little too late. Her reflexes were hilarious. She waited until everyone was done laughing before she chuckled. How comical. Gui Xuan and the others didn't say anything. Seeing in Wu Shuang and the others chattering on the other side, Gui Xuan turned away with a cold face. Suddenly, someone called out, "Look, what is that?" There's light in the sea. There was no light at all. It was a large halo of light rising from the depths of the sea. Everyone hurriedly flew forward to check. They were all fighting to be the first, afraid that they would fall behind. When Arbor's group came forward, they saw a ring-shaped light array appear on the surface of the sea. It was bright and lustrous, and it slightly rippled along with the calm sea water. Entrance! It's the entrance to the mystic realm. A practitioner shouted excitedly. Without saying a word, he dashed towards the light formation in the sea and jumped in. The others also hurriedly scrambled to run there, pushing and shoving each other. The first young cultivator who jumped into the light formation let out a miserable scream. In a matter of minutes, it was shattered into pieces by a strong light. Wow! The cultivator who almost had 1 foot in hurriedly took a step back. Unexpectedly, he bumped into several other cultivators who were charging from behind him. This person was very miserable. He staggered and fell into the light formation in front of him. Once he stepped into the light formation, this person was once again ground into pieces. Not even a trace of him was left. Everyone's expression changed abruptly, and they all retreated at the same time. Arbor's group jumped down a few times and took the opportunity to jump to the front of the crowd. At this time, the light circle had already shrunk a little. A few faintly pulsating seal scripts appeared in the air. Chapter 4453. At this moment, no one dared to go forward. They all consciously took a few steps back, staying far away from the circle of light and watching silently. That circle of light seems to be shrinking. And Wu Shuang looked at the circle of light that was gently floating with the sea water in surprise. The circle of light was shrinking really fast. At this rate, in less than half an hour, the entrance to the Tianji secret territory would disappear. Obviously, the other practitioners had also noticed this problem. 2 disciples of aristocratic families couldn't help but shout, "The entrance is about to close. What should we do now? Let's give it a try." Ow! Someone opened his eyes wide in surprise and turned to look at the disciple who spoke. "Do you want to die? If you lose your life, you'll lose everything. What's the point of talking about cultivation? What's the point of wanting treasures in the secret territory? If you die, all these things are worthless. Are you willing to accept this?" The young man clenched his fist and shouted angrily, "We're already at the entrance. Shouldn't we at least give it a try? Maybe those 2 people were just unlucky? What kind of joke was this? 2 people were torn to pieces in the circle of light. Could it be that they were both unlucky? No matter how brave they were, they couldn't disregard their own lives and choose to go forward to die at this time. If you want to go by yourselves. Wealth comes from danger. Fine, if you don't want to go, then I'll go." The young man clenched his fist and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he ran toward the entrance of the secret territory. Arbor and the others all stepped aside and looked coldly at him. They saw the young man rush to the entrance of the secret territory in a spurt of energy, but he suddenly stopped beside the circle of light. Seeing this, the others couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Yo, you were so high-spirited, but in the end, you're scared." Arbor didn't say anything. His gaze fell on the slowly pulsing runes above the circle of light. He was concentrating on studying them when suddenly, his body tensed up as he instinctively felt a trace of danger approaching. Mo Yin reacted even faster. She pulled Arbor into her arms and pushed him with a backhand palm. A young man dressed in black was sent flying by a palm wind, and he stumbled as he rushed out. This person couldn't control his body at all. Amidst the cries of alarm, he let out a heart-wrenching scream. The young man, standing at the edge of the circle of light, heard the scream and turned around. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. This person was heading straight for him, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. With a splash, that person immediately fell into the sea and stepped straight into the circle of light. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the unlucky guy was crushed to pieces by the entrance of the secret realm and died on the spot. Senior Brother Zhou. Mu Xiaoxue cried out in grief. She covered her mouth and looked at Arbor in shock. Her face was full of disbelief. It was as if she had done something heinous in Arbor that she couldn't understand. Miss Mu, what's so surprising about that? Princess Wushuang could not help but sneer. Your senior brother, Zhou, secretly tried to push my sister-in-law over. In the end, he flew out himself. Isn't this what we said about karma? Good and evil will be repaid in the end. Why do you say that, miss? Mu Xiaoxue trembled and said in a choked voice, Senior Brother Zhou. When did he push the crown princess? He's already dead. Don't slander him. Chapter 4454. And Wushuang was simply amused by her. She cast her a sidelong glance, but did not wish to speak with her. Does everyone have eyes to see? It's not something that can be confirmed by your mouths. Mu Xiaoxue was so angry that she was about to collapse, but she still maintained her calm tone. How could Senior Brother Zhou push the crown princess? Arbor stopped Commandery Princess Wushuang and glanced indifferently at Mu Xiaoxue. You want to see? What? Mu Xiaoxue's heart clenched. She felt that nothing good would come out of it if she continued speaking. If I can prove that your Senior Brother Zhou brought this upon himself, how does the City of Shadows plan to compensate? Don't boast so shamelessly. Now that there is no proof, how do you want to prove it? Just as Zhao Yi finished his sentence, he saw a palm strike coming towards him, landing heavily on his face. After a crisp slap, a palm print immediately appeared on the left side of his face. While I'm talking to your master, you'd better shut up, you dog. Zhao Yi covered his face with his hands, his eyes filled with shock. It was as if he could not imagine that a grown man like him would be slapped by a little girl. I already told you that my patience is very limited. Arbor sternly interrupted Zhao Yi's unfinished words. If you want to die, you can continue. Why don't you try? Senior Brother Zhou. Mu Xiaoxue was alarmed and panicked. She quickly pushed Zhao Yi, this burly man, behind her and put on an expression that showed that although she was terrified, she still braced herself to protect her senior brother. Mu Xiaoxue, don't play tricks in front of me. Arbor stared at her coldly and said, Do you know how many delicate white flowers like you I've killed since you were young? Do you want me to read out a string of names for you? Starting from Wenruan, then Commandery Princess and Wu Xiaosu, Shan Yisu, and finally you. Do you know how the ones before you all died? Do you want me to tell you how they all ended up? Every one of them died a horrible death. Arbor, Gu Yishuan reached out and hugged Mu Xiaoxue, who was trembling uncontrollably, and roared angrily. Shut up. A vicious aura burst forth from the little stoic's body, and her palm froze into ice. She spread open her fingers, and an ice sword covered in barbs instantly appeared. The tip of the sword pointed at Gu Yishuan's neck without hesitation. The latter only felt a trace of cold air seeping into his limbs and bones from his skin. It was as if his entire body was going to be frozen in an instant. I've had enough of your nonsense. I only have one question for you. If I can prove that it was indeed someone from the City of Shadows who had malicious intentions behind my back, how will you compensate me? Pay with your life? Arbor pointed his ice sword at the ashen-faced Zhao Yi. Were you? The glittering ice sword once again moved to Gu Yishuan's chest. Trash, do you dare to bet? The entire place was dead silent. From a moment the young crown princess exploded in anger. It was truly so quiet that one could hear a pin drop, except for the occasional sound of breathing. The little girl nimbly raised her hand and continuously made several transparent hand seals. The surrounding air suddenly rippled like water ripples, dispersing in front of everyone's eyes. A faint light screen appeared, and the scene from earlier immediately appeared on the screen. Although it was soundless, everyone was not blind. Chapter 4455. Naturally, they could see that man from the City of Shadows, surnamed Zhou, standing right behind the young crown princess. He suddenly reached out and pushed the young crown princess back, a trace of smugness flashing through his eyes. In the blink of an eye, Prince Imo scooped his wife into his arms and struck out with a backhand palm strike. That idiot was sent flying on the spot. Everyone looked at the City of Shadows with complicated gazes. They didn't expect a villain to launch a sneak attack from behind in such a prestigious sect like the City of Shadows. Not only were there aristocratic family disciples present, but there were also many hot-blooded mercenaries and unaffiliated itinerant cultivators. What everyone dreaded the most were villains who appeared amiable on the surface, but would attack you desperately from time to time behind your back. It was truly too frightening to be around such people. Gu Yishuan's expression was also a bit unsightly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard his junior sister in his arms say meekly, "Senior brother Gu, I am fine." Lowering his head to see his junior sister so frightened by the little stoic, Gu Yishuan couldn't help but be enraged. Mu Xiaoxue wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and gently pushed Gu Yishuan away. She bowed at Arbor. "Crown Princess, my apologies. I didn't see Senior Brother Zhou do that just now." "Mu Xiaoxue, I told you not to provoke me." Arbor extended 2 fingers and made a gesture of communicating with her eyes. "If I had targeted you, guess how long you would have lived?" Mu Xiaoxue took a step back in fright, a dazed and frightened expression hanging on her fair face. Her entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly. "Arbor, don't threaten her. Come at me if you have anything." Gu Yishuan hastily walked forward and shielded his junior sister behind him. "Threaten?" Arbor couldn't help but sneer. "I've never done such a senseless thing." She walked step by step toward the pair of martial siblings. Gu Yishuan was actually intimidated by her aura, but in order to protect his pitiful junior sister, he forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart and stood in front of Mu Xiaoxue. "Mu Xiaoxue, do you not understand what I'm saying? I told you not to act like a little white flower in front of me. I, the crown princess, won't fall for your tricks like those 2 idiots beside you." Tears welled up in Mu Xiaoxue's eyes as she said pitifully, "I didn't. Cut the crap and compensate me." Arbor interrupted her coldly. What compensation?" Mu Xiaoxue couldn't help but shudder. She felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. "That's enough." Lin Miao flung her sister Lin Jin'er's hand away and shouted angrily, "Even if someone attacked you in the City of Shadows just now, he's already dead. What compensation do you want? Why don't you go underground and ask for compensation?" As soon as Lin Miao finished speaking, she felt several cold gazes land on her. Traces of killing intent made her tremble all over. She quickly retreated behind Lin Jin'er, lowering her head and not daring to look at the crown prince and the others' expressions. "Compensation," Arbor roared impatiently at Mu Xiaoxue. 10 million spirit coins. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes immediately widened. Gu Yishuan, Zhao Yi, and the others also stared at her in shock. They all cried out in unison, 10 million. "You, cut the crap." Arbor didn't have the patience to be long-winded with them. She slowly raised the ice sword in her hand. "It's fine if you don't want to compensate. Eat my sword." Chapter 4456. Yu Gu Yishuan pulled Mu Xiaoxue back and stepped into the water. When they looked back, they realized that they were not far from the circle of light. They were so frightened that they hurried ashore. But an ice sword was right in front of them. "You should be glad that the idiot who stabbed me in the back is already dead." Xiao Mu gazed icily at Mu Xiaoxue as she enunciated each word. "Does the City of Shadows want to be buried with him? Compensate! 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 Compensate!" Lin Jin'er rushed forward and blocked Gu Yishuan and Mu Xiaoxue. She took out a spirit coin card from her inner world and presented it with both hands. "Sister." Lin Miao could not help but stomp her foot. Lin Jin'er ignored her and handed over a spirit coin card. Then, she cupped her hands at Arbor and said, "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding." Mu Xiaoshue's face was slightly pale as she leaned into Gui Xuan's arms. She seemed to be frightened and looked at Arbor in shock. Seeing her cold gaze, he quickly averted his eyes, not daring to look at her. Arbor took the spirit coin card and walked to Mo Lian's side. She tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "The runes on it only represent 2 words, life and death." Mo Lian was startled and looked at the circle of light that was shrinking. "I think this entrance won't last much longer." The venerable peach blossom immortal smiled gloatingly. "Do you want to go in?" Arbor nodded. "Of course, let's go in." How could such a small problem stump Lord Jojo? If Ancestor Xuanji knew that she could not even enter Ancestor Tianjizi's mystic realm, he would probably jump out of the ground and give her a good beating. "Do you see the jumping runes on it?" Arbor smiled. "Watch my movements and follow me." Then, she turned and waved at Mo Lian and the others. She turned and levitated into the air. She flew into the circle of light and flicked her fingers a few times. Mo Lian and the others could see clearly that the little fellow's fingers quickly tapped on 4 of the jumping runes. She immediately disappeared into thin air. "Let's go," Mo Lian said indifferently. Then, she floated over. She raised her hand and patted the runes a few times. Then, she disappeared as well. He Chun, Feng Zhangqing, Rong Qing, Wu Shuang, Fu San, Ming Yasi, and Ding Yun entered the array one after another. Not good. The entrance seems to have shrunk quite a bit. What's going on? How many runes did they slap just now? Yes, the talisman. A middle-aged rogue cultivator rushed into the formation. Then, he clapped a few talismans in a flurry. Immediately, a gust of wind blew. He raised his head in horror, only to see a floating light shrouding down from the sky and cutting him apart in a matter of minutes. What's going on? How do they pass? Everyone don't panic. Mu Xiaoxue stared at the shrinking circle of light. "I know. It's a rune. You can't just slap it. I don't know if you noticed, but when they went in just now, each of them only tapped 4 times. It's the word life or death. Just now, the Crown Princess also said that the runes here only represent 2 words, life and death. Life? Death? Where are these 2 words? The runes on the surface were messy. The words were scribbled like graffiti. No one could see what the words were. Is there a talisman master here? Can you help me identify it? When a talisman master draws talismans, the words life and death are written differently from ours. Chapter 4457. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, but dissatisfaction towards the little crown princess rose in their hearts again. This crown princess was too much of a jerk. She clearly grasped the method to enter the mystic realm, but she didn't tell anyone. She didn't even explain it clearly to her own team members and only had them follow her movements. It was really difficult for her team members to see her swift and fierce speed clearly, but the majority of them really couldn't see her dazzling movements clearly. She only took 1 shot just now. Could it be that everyone in her team saw it clearly? That's right. Isn't she afraid of trapping her own teammates? Everyone was silent. It was very obvious that everyone in the other team saw it clearly. This was the difference in cultivation level. Some smart people couldn't help but silently shut their mouths. They couldn't afford to offend her. The people in the Little Stoics team all had cultivations above theirs, right? Seeing that the circle of light had shrunk to the point where only 2 people could pass through, a trace of anxiety flitted across Mu Xiaoshue's eyes. Since we don't have talisman practitioners here, how about this? I have a stupid idea. We're very sure that they took 4 shots when they went in. So there must be 4 identical runes mixed in. Let's all go look for them. Okay. Everyone was like ants on a hot pan now. Mu Xiaoxue gave them a direction, and as if they had found their backbone, they all gathered together. Across the beach, they carefully examined the runes. Indeed, hard work paid off. The group of people didn't even blink for a long time before they finally found those 4 scribbly-looking runes. Although they couldn't understand the runes on them, Judging from the shape and strokes, they were probably the same. Seeing their hesitation, Mu Xiaoxue plucked up her courage and said, I'll go in first. You guys follow me. Little junior sister. All the City of Shadows disciples exclaimed in unison. Junior sister, move aside. How can I let you take the lead with senior brother here? Zhao Yi hastily shielded his junior sister behind him. I'll go. Senior brother. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes revealed that she was touched. Zhao Yi's heart rippled from her gaze, and he felt a sweetness from the depths of his heart all the way to his mouth. Zhao Yi flew into the shrinking circle of light. Arbor suddenly turned around and looked at the small slope behind him with an expressionless face. The corners of his mouth curled up with a trace of ridicule, and he pushed his little hand away to draw a talisman in the air. He gestured with his fingers, but his face remained calm. Break! With a shout, several talisman seals flew out of thin air with a whoosh and hit the unrestrained air in front of him, emitting the sound of glass shattering. The illusion glyph array was no longer effective on her. The moment she stepped into the mystic realm, she recognized that this was the small hill behind Quoto Village. He even saw Wu Yinjin stumbling out from behind the slope with a hunchback. How could she forget such a scene? On the third day after she came back to life, she ambushed Wu Yinjin at this very place. Did he think she would be afraid or scared? Did he not dare to face his past? What a joke. Everything she had done was still vivid in her mind, and she would not regret a single one of them. Arbor's face was cold, and his lips curled into a cold smile. He stepped on the soft soil and slowly walked forward. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Chio, where's Jojo's lotus? I've already contacted her, but the Crown Prince and the Venerable Celestial are too unlucky. Arbor raised her eyebrows. Chapter 4458. Master, come with me. The little treant jumped down from her shoulder and ran forward with its little arms and legs. Xiaomu swiftly followed after it and asked, either intentionally or unintentionally, what's up with them now? They said they were robbed by a bunch of you. What? Xiaomu's small face stiffened, and she could not resist creasing her brows. Master, what should we do? The little treant led the way and chuckled. They can't break the array. Master, why don't you break the array from the outside and save them? Arbor was speechless. Where are the others? I can already sense their auras. Master, you should go and save the Crown Prince first. Arbor looked helpless, but still ran after the little treant. A few minutes later, Xiaomu stood on a mountain slope that stretched as far as the eye could see. It's here. Master, draw a talisman and break this illusion array. Arbor was speechless. She drew a talisman in the air and flicked it into the air in front of her. The surrounding slope was visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, an emerald green color covered the entire mountain. Two figures floated in the air and appeared in front of her. Taking a closer look, the two of them had messy hair and their sleeves were all wrinkled. The expressionless Master Jojo looked at the two of them and said, "Go find the others." Jojo, Emolian dashed in front of him and pulled him to her side. Jojo, you hit me. What hit you? She even kicked me a dozen times. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal pointed at the footprints on his robe. Did you see that? You kicked me. Master Jojo put on a cold and emotionless face. A small illusion array can make you look so pathetic. Useless. What trifling, illusory formation. Emolian huffed. I originally thought that it was merely a mirage, illusory formation. Who knew that a bunch of you would pounce on me, each with a physical body, kicking, biting, scratching, and tearing. You even forced me to hand over my Dharma treasures and spirit coins. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. Ha! Believe me. Emolian reached out and held her little face. You look exactly the same as when we first met. I recognized it at a glance. It was you who was in the prime of your youth. He looks about 12 years old. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal twitched his mouth and pointed at the 17 or 18 small footprints on his robe. Did you see that, Jojo? These are all footprints left by a bunch of your kicks. I gave him a pile of spirit tools and Dharma treasures. Speaking of which, it's strange. After your illusions, took the Dharma treasures and spirit tools, they all left. The little treant burst into laughter. It's not my illusion. Arbor's face was still cold. It's old man Fecta. Really? Why does it look so real? Yes, 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 it's too real. What a bunch of you. The venerable peach blossom immortal counted silently. There are at least 100 of you. Arbor, the little treant, said hurriedly. Master Silver, I think there's something fishy about this. Look at the two of them. There are footprints on them, and their hair is messy. They really don't look like they were created by an illusion array. Could there really be 100 of you hidden in this place? Arbor glanced at the little treant and looked at them coldly. Let's go. Go find Wu Shuang and Fu San. They're nearby. The venerable peach blossom immortal tidied his messy hair and walked to Emolyen's side to poke her. Jojo is having a mental breakdown. Chapter 4459. Although Emolyen did not say anything, the smile in her eyes had already revealed her current mood. One must know that when the two of them had just entered the illusion glyph matrix, they had seen the overwhelming number of Jojo pouncing on them, tearing, pulling, and violently robbing them. At that time, all sorts of feelings had welled up in their hearts. Chocho could not help but laugh. But in the blink of an eye, it met its master's cold eyes and hurriedly put on a serious face. What exactly is it? Arbor looked at the two of them helplessly. She did not believe that the two of them could not even make a small illusion glyph matrix when they worked together. The reason why they stayed, there must be some strange discovery. Emolyen held her hands and looked at her with a smile. You may not believe it. Sigh, these Jojo that look exactly like you are all mechanical men. Ah, Arbor opened her mouth in surprise. Mechanical men? Yes, they're made of deep-sea mystic crystal. Mechanical men. Emolyen nodded with a face full of certainty. Speaking of which, the craftsmanship of these mechanical men is really not bad. Yes, yes, they're so agile. They rush up and strip off clothes to rob. Ah, simply. The venerable peach blossom immortal spread out his hands emotionally. Sir Jojo treated him with a cold face, pretending that he did not hear rotten peach blossom's muttering. Yes, I understand. This fellow ended the conversation and turned around expressionlessly. Go find Wu Shuang. Emolyen couldn't help but suppress the smile on his lips. He quickly walked to the little fellow's side and held her hand. Xiao Xiao, if you see those golems, you'll definitely like them very much. He leaned slightly and whispered in her ear. I like them too. It was so cute that it made one's face bleed. So many Jojo, covering the sky and earth, climbing up and down. It was really interesting to look at. Arbor only felt his hot breath beside her ear. It was scalding. She glanced at him without changing her expression. Her hands quietly retracted into her sleeves, and she stepped forward. In an instant, her ears were a little hot. Emolyen couldn't help but smile. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he teased her. Jojo, turn around and look at me. Jojo, don't panic. Although there are more than 100 Jojos, I can recognize you at a glance. There's no mistake. Jojo, take a guess. How many Jojo are there? Jojo, I suspect that this arcane realm has an owner. Arbor finally stopped and turned to him with a calm expression. You mean Ancestor Fecta isn't dead yet? It's possible. Impossible. Arbor shook his head. Why do you say that? Emolyen asked with a smile. A woman's intuition. The crown prince turned and exchanged a glance with the venerable peach blossom immortal. I believe in you, Jojo. Jojo's intuition is very accurate. Emolyen couldn't help but be speechless. The little treant jumped up and down. Quick, it's right in front. I can already feel the aura of the princess and the rest. The three of them then quickened their pace and ran forward. Clusters of light pink flowers bloomed on the hillside. Each flower was only the size of a thumb. The large patch of flowers connected the sky and the ground. It looked as if they had barged into a pink world. Emolyen, Arbor, and He Jichen quickly rushed to the front and saw Fu San and Wu Shuang being surrounded by a large group of wooden men. There were hundreds of wooden men. The key was that their limbs were very agile. When they formed a group, they actually looked like they were fighting with others. Their spiritual power overflowed, and their energy was released continuously. Chapter 4460. Arbor was amazed. These wooden men even knew how to set up formations. 17 or 18 wooden men nimbly jumped onto their companions' shoulders and waved their wooden arms. Immediately, countless spiritual powers flowed out and attacked Fu San and Wu Shuang. Luckily, the wooden men were only at the 7th level of the spiritual realm, which was far below Wu Shuang and Fu San. Thus, the two of them were not in any danger. However, they did not feel any pain. They attacked the two of them in groups, which made them a little flustered. Fu San's fireballs landed on the wooden men, but the fire could not burn them. It was obvious that these wooden men were not so simple. They were made of fire-resistant materials. Arbor, Hu Jiechin, and Mo Lien jumped up and landed beside the two of them. They raised their hands and slapped away the wooden men around them. Brother, sister-in-law, and Wu Shuang's eyes lit up. She hurriedly shouted, "We have to think of a way to trap these things. They can't be killed or burned. Look, they can still move after being scattered." Sure enough, when Xiao Mu turned around to look, she saw several wooden arms and legs scurrying back and forth around them like headless flies. It was very frightening to look at. "Move aside." Arbor frowned. He raised his hand and threw out a pitch-black round pearl. He leaped onto it and hovered in front of everyone. "What is this?" Princess Wu Shuang asked in surprise. Arbor did not answer. He slapped out 2 beams of divine energy and landed heavily on the heart of misfortune. The pitch-black round pearl instantly exploded with thousands of rays of strong light. Instantly, thousands of rays of light swept across everyone present and covered the wooden men that were about to charge forward. Mo Lien, Hu Jiechin, Fu San, and Wu Shuang hurriedly raised their hands and pressed down. Abundant energy flowed through their bodies. They stood firmly on the spot and did not move an inch. Only their robes and hair danced with the strong wind. The wind whirled past and swept away the hundreds of wooden men in front of them. The black bead slowly gathered its light and fell into Arbor's hand. The little stoic turned her head to glance at the 4 people without batting an eyelid. She put away the heart of misfortune in passing and said aloofly, "Let's go." "Wow, what's that?" And Wu Shuang hopped over and looked around with a surprised expression. "The realm of misfortune," the venerable peach blossom immortal said with a smile. "Before we met you, we accidentally fell into the realm of misfortune. It was Jojo who refined himself into the heart of misfortune. That was how he broke the realm of misfortune and released us." Third young Master Fu and Princess Wu Shuang were shocked when they heard this. He had long known that this crown princess was extraordinary, but he didn't know that it would be so unexpected. The crown princess is refining the realm of misfortune for her own use. Third young Master Fu could not help but sigh. As expected of the crown princess, her abilities were outstanding. "That's right. I heard that the realm of misfortune is full of nightmares. Once people enter and let their imaginations run wild, they will be filled with strange dangers. As long as they were alive, how could they not have thoughts? Even if they strictly controlled their unrestrained thoughts, they might be able to control it for a day or two, but how could they control it for half a month? But these wooden men aren't alive." Arbor looked indifferent. Throw them inside and let them be. In any case, this realm of misfortune had no other uses, and Arbor had never thought of integrating it into his star domain to cause trouble. "Hey, then does that mean we can also throw them inside when we encounter zombies in the future?" Chapter 4461. Wouldn't that save a lot of trouble? Princess Wu Shuang suddenly had an idea. She looked at her sister-in-law with bright eyes, her face full of admiration. This heart of misfortune was too powerful. If we encounter a large number of enemies in the future, can we throw them all in and let them fend for themselves? In theory, it should be possible. Arbor nodded slowly, and Wu Shuang could not help but raise her eyebrows. In theory? Yes, people with high cultivation levels might not be able to absorb it, just like you guys. and Wushuang nodded in realization. Although they had retreated more than 10 steps earlier, when the heart of misfortune emitted a strong light and absorbed the wooden dummies, they could also feel a heavy pressure on their bodies. However, they could use their powers to resist, so they were not absorbed by the heart of misfortune. Of course, this was also because the little crown princess had deliberately blocked them outside. Yin smiled and walked forward, holding Arbor's little hand. It's done. Even if it was not easy to absorb experts above the godly state, if they encountered a large number of low-level zombie puppets in the future, they could really throw them all in to save trouble. This heart of misfortune sturdiness was different from a storage talisman. If too many random things were stuffed into the storage talisman, the things inside might break out of the walls of the talisman. However, the heart of misfortune was different. It was refined from a mystic realm, so its sturdiness could not be compared to the heart of misfortune. In the future, if Jojo did not want to fight with the zombie army, he would sweep them into the heart of misfortune and get rid of them once and for all. Of course, Arbor knew what Yin meant. Hearing this, he looked up and chuckled. Thinking about it, if a large group of Tianyan disciples attacked and threw them all into the heart of misfortune, how would it feel? However, if there is a transcendent state expert present and uses a shield to protect them, it might not be impossible to save them. Arbor pursed his little mouth and jumped on the spot. However, if I ascend to the transcendent state one day, it will be a different story. The right path was to increase his own strength. Yin raised her hand and patted her head. All right. You've done well enough, my Jojo. You've done something that most people can't. Yuan Shurchen nodded with a smile. Indeed. And Wushuang laughed heartily and ran forward to hold the young crown princess's hand. Sister-in-law, let's go. Where are the others now? Chio. In front. Follow me. The little trant shook its two branches and led the group forward in a hurry. Arbor's group followed. After walking for a short distance, Arbor lowered his eyebrows, coughed, and asked, You said that it wasn't an illusion array? Then after the formation was broken, where did all those mechanical men go? Yeah, the venerable peach blossom immortal turned around and floated in front of Arbor. He said with a smile, It's really strange. After the talisman formation was broken, those little Jojos all disappeared. What little Jojos? Princess Wushuang asked curiously. Nothing. Arbor took the lead and walked forward expressionlessly, leaving Yuan Shurchen and the others behind. The venerable peach blossom immortal could not help but chuckle. He turned to look at Yin, who was looking at him sideways, and shook his finger. Jojo is shy. You're so boring. How am I boring? The venerable peach blossom immortal smiled. Chapter 4462. Look at her tense expression, but she's actually more curious than us, right? The venerable peach blossom immortal glanced at Yin with a smile. The latter snorted at him and strode off to chase after his wife. This Tianji mystic realm is very strange. It's better to be careful, Princess Wushuang said seriously. Let's find the others first. Eldest brother. Princess Wushuang thought of something and quickly caught up to him. She said loudly, I seem to have forgotten to tell you. The old man told us before that this place has a weapon refining cauldron even better than the heavenly forging cauldron. Our goal in this mystic realm isn't to find anything else. Our objective is to find this weapon refining cauldron. Yin was taken aback, but then she asked with a smile, You came here to find the weapon refining cauldron? Of course. And Wushuang raised her head and looked at Arbor's expressionless face with a grin. Sister-in-law also came here for this. Qiao Mu's face was stiff and icy as she explained in passing. I came to slap ancestor Tianjizi's face. Everyone couldn't resist bursting into laughter. The little stoic cast them a sidelong glance until Yin chuckled and said, What are you laughing at? What's so funny? You're not allowed to laugh. Not allowed to laugh. Masta, Feng Changqing, and the others are just up ahead. The group of 5 sprinted in the direction the little tramp pointed. After a little less than an hour, Princess Wushuang, 3rd young Master Fu, and Sir Jojo's faces all darkened. Where are they? They're just up ahead, Chio said resolutely. This mystic realm is huge. Don't be discouraged and keep running. You'll probably encounter them after running for another 2 hours. Everyone, why didn't you say so earlier? Princess Wushuang cursed exasperately. She raised her hand to release a six-winged bird and beckoned everyone to hop on. The little trance sprawled on the expressionless Sir Jojo's shoulder with a solemn expression. Fly! The six-winged bird lifted its body and flew into the sky, its wings gliding as it flew forward at an extremely fast speed. This mystic realm is really something. The little treant was blown by the strong wind. Its entire body was shaking, and its leaves were rustling. Princess Wushuang turned around and almost burst out laughing. This thing's thin arms and legs were slightly disheveled in the wind, and the few sparse leaves on its head were rustling. This image was simply comical. Shut up, Arbor said expressionlessly as he pulled it off his shoulder and held it in his arms, blocking the wind for it. The little treant was so touched that tears welled up in its eyes. Its pair of bean-like little eyes looked at Qiao emotionally. Master, you're so good to Chio. Arbor patted the top of the tree. Can you feel it? It's coming, it's coming. It's right in front. Do you see it? Princess Wushuang was standing below the neck of the six-winged flying bird. Therefore, she could see the chaotic battle of the five spirits at first glance. The six-winged flying bird circled twice in the sky, but it could not find a place to land. However, some of the people in the chaotic battle below had already noticed their arrival. Someone screamed, "Enemy attack!" All kinds of five spirits' power, rising and falling, immediately smashed toward them. The six-winged flying bird's dodging speed was also very fast. It flew back and forth in the colorful spiritual power, dodging countless attacks, and let out a shrill cry. Chapter 4463. Ming Yasi's sword rose and fell, instantly chopping down an unlucky bastard who didn't know better. When they looked up, they saw a large bird with 6 wings circling above their heads. It just couldn't find a place to land. The group of idiots around them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. Blinded by their impulsiveness, they threw water spirits and fire spirits at the bird as if they didn't cost anything. It's the Holy Maiden and the others. Feng Changqing turned the hilt of his sword and smashed away a lunatic pouncing man. He looked up and said, I can't believe you're still in the mood to go easy on them." Young Master Ding dodged and chopped off a round head. These people are heavily poisoned. They've completely lost their minds. We can't let them live. Crown Prince Rong quickly stepped forward and waved at the bird in the sky. Jojo, they're all here. And Wushuang looked down, then turned to Arbor and Mo Lien and nodded slightly. In the next moment, Princess Wushuang quickly put her 6-winged bird back into the spirit beast space. The 5 of them descended from the sky and landed beside Rongqing and Feng Changqing. Feng Changqing turned to look at Arbor and said happily, "Holy Maiden, are you all right?" "We're fine." Arbor expressionlessly knocked down a young girl pouncing at him and sent her flying with a kick. "What's going on?" "I don't know. We just broke the illusion array and reunited. Then we ran into these people. They all seemed to have lost their minds. They pounced on us, bit us, and tore us apart. They looked like they wanted to fight us to the death." Arbor frowned and slapped the back of a fat middle-aged man. The latter staggered and fell to the ground, but before he could get up with a roar, Xiao Mu kicked him in the back. It was as if he'd been crushed by a large mountain, and his whole body heavily fell back onto the ground. Arbor's gaze fell on the man's back. There were some burnt talisman ashes on the man's back. Arbor raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself, "Puppet talisman?" When he said this, everyone looked around vigilantly. "There's a talisman master here?" Arbor stretched out a finger, disdain in his eyes. He took some unburned talisman ashes from the middle-aged man's back and rubbed them between his fingers. Crown Prince Mo immediately took out a clean handkerchief and pulled over his wife's small hand, wiping her fingers in a considerate manner. "A talisman master from the Tianji secret realm has sneaked in." Arbor stretched out 2 fingers and drew a mind-tranquil talisman. Talismans like this one usually, so many talismans as T-Tess. Feng Zhangqing, Ming Yasi, Rong Qing, and Wu Shuang, and the others were naturally aware of her identity as a grand talisman master, but they rarely saw her draw talismans in the air. Her movements were smooth and graceful, and her fingers moved like a dragon without the slightest pause. The same thought floated in everyone's minds. Watching the young crown prince consort make seals was simply a kind of visual pleasure. As the mind-tranquil talismans appeared out of thin air, rays of talisman light fell onto the backs of the people around her. All the people who were tearing each other apart lowered their hands in confusion. Arbor glanced at them. He only had a vague impression of a few of them. They seemed to be disciples of the aristocratic families of the Divine Prefecture. He didn't recognize the rest. Who are these people? Princess Wu Shuang asked in surprise. Third young Master Fu's mouth twitched. Shuang. We met them at the entrance of the secret realm. Chapter 4464. Oh, and Wu Shuang nodded and glanced at the crowd in confusion. So it's them. How are they up like this? Arbor is also puzzled. Her hands didn't stop moving as she inserted mind-cleansing talismans into everyone's bodies one by one. Not long after, the middle-aged fat uncle who had been injected with the mind-cleansing talisman woke up. He sat up from the ground and looked at Arbor and the others in confusion. Suddenly, he bounced up and asked, "Why are you here?" He touched the bloodstains on his chest and screamed in fright. Why am I bleeding so much? Feng Zhangqing and the others couldn't help but roll their eyes. Uncle, stop screaming. You were all controlled by the puppet talisman. That's why you surrounded us and attacked us. After that, they even started killing each other. Crown Prince Rong hurriedly said, "Look at the knife in your hand. There, did it land on that person's butt?" The fat uncle turned around and saw that his weapon was indeed on the butt of an unlucky person behind him. That unlucky person was lying face down on the ground. It was obvious that he was dead. The fat uncle screamed in fright and hurriedly pulled his knife out of the person's body. He couldn't hold the knife steady, and it almost fell to the ground. He screamed, How did this happen? I already said that you were controlled by the puppet talisman." Young Masterding rolled his eyes speechlessly. "Miss Qiao saved you with a mind-cleansing talisman. Stop screaming." The plump uncle recovered his senses in a state of shock, and he turned to look at Xiao Mu and Mo Lien, who were standing a few steps behind him. The little crown princess was still drawing talismans in the air and pushing out one talisman after another. When she saw the fat uncle looking at her in horror, she only glanced at him indifferently. After using the last mind-cleansing talisman, Arbor's body swayed slightly. Mo Lien hurriedly reached out and held her in his arms. "Jojo." Mo Lien frowned slightly, his handsome face full of disapproval. To put it bluntly, the life and death of these people had nothing to do with them. He was not happy to see his Charles exhaust his talisman power to save these ungrateful people. "It's nothing. It's just that I've used too much talisman energy." Arbor patted the back of his hand to comfort him. He frowned and said coldly, "It's not to save them. I just don't want the 3 continents to become even more chaotic. If these people all died in this secret realm at the same time, then if nothing unexpected happened, the clans, mercenary groups, and clans that they belong to would definitely cause a great deal of trouble. At that time, they would suspect and fight each other, and the entire world would definitely become even more turbulent and uneasy." Mo Lien's heart softened. She stroked her hair and said in a low voice, "Jojo, how can I help you recover?" "I'm fine. My talisman energy recovers quite quickly. I'll be fine after resting for a while." After saying that, he reached out and took out a pill and swallowed it. "What are you doing?" And Wu Shuang reached out to block the fat uncle who was walking forward. "Are you looking for trouble?" No, miss, you misunderstood." The fat uncle looked embarrassed. He stammered, Miss Qiao saved us." "What Miss Qiao?" "That's my sister-in-law. She's called the Crown Princess." It was indeed inappropriate to call her the Crown Princess when they were out training. She thought for a moment and said, "Call her Madame Mo, as the Crown Prince's #1 fan, Princess Wushuang felt that she had to protect her brother's sovereignty. Yes, yes. The fat uncle nodded repeatedly. Madame Imo, thank you for saving us. Chapter 4465. Words cannot express my gratitude. I am a member of the De Fey mercenary group, although my cultivation is lacking. But in the future, if Madame needs any help, just say the word, and I will definitely do my best to help. And Wushuang couldn't help but smile, thinking, I didn't expect this chubby middle-aged uncle to be such a sentimental person. Arbor's eyes flickered slightly, and he turned to look at the chubby middle-aged uncle, nodding lightly with an indifferent expression. Soon, many aristocratic family disciples, mercenaries, and rogue cultivators who had regained consciousness also came forward and cupped their hands to express their gratitude to the little crown princess. Some people's expressions were a little unnatural. They probably recalled how they had secretly cursed the little crown princess in their hearts at the entrance of the secret realm, and now they felt very embarrassed when they thought about it. Everyone, does anyone else remember what happened? Feng Zhangqing asked in a low voice. Why were all of you affected by the puppet curse? Who cast this curse on you? Do you have any recollection? Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and looked at each other. Someone recalled, at that time, we were able to enter the Tianji's secret realm with great difficulty, and we were all very excited. When we came in, we only saw a scene of white mist in front of our eyes. Yes, I also saw a scene of white mist. After that, I don't know what happened to the others. I only felt that my head was dizzy for a moment, as if someone had punched me a few times. Yes, did you feel the same? Indeed. The chubby middle-aged uncle scratched his head. Everyone, just now you said that we were affected by the puppet curse. But may I ask, can this kind of curse only work if it is used on us face to face? That may not be so. Arbor looked at the chubby uncle who asked the question and said expressionlessly, a great curse master can cast a puppet technique thousands of miles away and take a person's head with a snap of his fingers. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. Arbor saw that they were scared out of their wits and were all dumbstruck. So he continued, however, to prepare so many puppet curses is definitely a big deal. That's right. There are over 100 people here, and all of them have been affected by the puppet charm. And Wushuang came to a sudden understanding. So the person that utilized the puppet talisman definitely possesses more than just these few talismans, right? Arbor nodded again, agreeing with Wushuang's opinion. Indeed, he must have at least 1,000 talismans in his hands, which is why he can use them so freely. Madame Imo, do you think the person who cast the spell on us is still among us? That's possible. The disciples of aristocratic families, mercenaries, and rogue cultivators immediately burst into an uproar. They looked at each other with vigilance in their eyes. But I don't think that's very likely. Arbor's expression was indifferent. Just now, I gave each of you a mind-cleansing talisman to remove the puppet spell on your body. In other words, all of you should have been affected. If the person behind the scenes wanted to control you, it's unlikely that he would also be affected by the puppet charm. In that case, wouldn't that person be unable to properly appreciate what the people under his control looked like now? Then who could it be? The group of people were like headless flies, their faces filled with nervousness. Will this person come to harm us again? Chapter 4466. 50218 people were different from each other. Arbor glanced at the chubby uncle and nodded with an honest expression. I think so. Everyone instantly looked as if the sky was about to fall. Like ants on a hot pan, they paced in front of Arbor's group. What should we do? They came to the mystic realm to ask for a lucky treasure, not to lose their lives. Arbor glanced at them and decided not to scare these timid fellows. Calm down. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. A talisman master needs talisman power to send talismans from thousands of miles away. Arbor said calmly, someone must have injected a puppet talisman into you the moment you entered the mystic realm. According to my estimation, the talisman master's talisman power should have been almost depleted. It will take some time for him to recover. Madame Imo, then what about you? You should have used up a lot of talisman power when you dispelled the talisman for us. Now, have you recovered? The little crown princess nodded very honestly. Prince Immerse stood at the side. He wanted to give his little wife some advice, but she had already nodded in response. Sure enough, when he looked at the faces of those fools, they looked even more hopeless than if the sky were about to fall. The youth who spoke earlier cried out, "Crown Princess, you recovered so quickly. It seems that the talisman power didn't take long to recover." Arbor blinked. She suddenly felt speechless with these people. Why were they so stupid? Was she the same as other talisman masters? These people always used her as the standard. Were there differences between people? Yin coughed lightly and quickly changed the topic. Previously, you moved together in a large group with a clear target. Others only needed to use their divine perception to search for you, and you could be assassinated from afar. Why don't you split into small groups? Prince Immerse said in a low voice. Moreover, that charm master shouldn't be able to recover so quickly within a few hours. Split up and act separately. Consciously restrain your aura. The other party definitely won't be able to catch all of you in one go. Unless they met again, they couldn't blame anyone but themselves for being unlucky. Stay alert and don't trust others so easily. That was all they could say. Since everyone had chosen to enter the mystic realm to train, they should have expected to encounter all kinds of dangers, right? Young master, oh, madam. Everyone still wanted to say something, but Feng Zhongqing stepped forward and cupped his fists. Everyone, you'd better split up as soon as possible and pay attention to restrain your aura. Let's go. Arbor, Yin, and the others nodded and followed Feng Zhongqing's footsteps. They turned around and left, leaving behind a large group of people. They looked at each other, and for a moment, they were shrouded in gloomy clouds. Sister-in-law, I think those people just now seem to want to follow us. And Wuxuang touched his chin and whispered, Was I mistaken? No. Arbor shook her head. They were all smart people. Naturally, they could see the desire in those people's eyes. However, would they bring these burdens with them? Besides, they were originally relying on their own ability to search for treasures in the mystic realm. If everyone found treasures together, would they still need to draw their swords and fight to the death? Don't worry about it. Arbor's expression was indifferent. We've helped where we can, but we still have to walk our own path. Chapter 4467 50219. How sad. They were not related to each other. She felt bad about troubling others, right? Xiaomu's original intention was to be herself. Who is it? Who is so generous to put so many puppet charms on people? And Wuxuang muttered to herself as she walked. Don't think about it if you can't figure it out. Arbor waved her hand. We will meet them anyway. Just think of a way to deal with them. That's true. Princess Wuxuang giggled. She held her hands behind her back and skipped forward. There's no use thinking so much. This person dares to put puppet charms on people from thousands of miles away. I think it must be... She suddenly paused and looked behind her warily. Everyone else also stopped in their tracks and turned around to look. There was nothing behind them. Only a gentle breeze blew by. There seemed to be no movement at all. Arbor curled her lips. Several ebony blue talismans floated from her fingertips and flew over. Dong, dong, dong. The air that was hit by the ebony talismans started to distort. Third young Master Fu and Princess Wuxuang threw out a few fireballs and water balls, hitting the fluctuating air. Then, they heard a few muffled sounds. The distorted air instantly calmed down. Since you are so interested, why don't you show yourself? Arbor said coldly. More than 10 ebony blue talismans flew over with a flick of her finger and landed in the air around them. Along with the layers of ripples in the air, muffled sounds could be heard one after another. Suddenly, a person rolled over from the front. He rolled very smoothly and looked like a big fat ball. Master Jojo expressionlessly stretched out his leg and kicked hard. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched as they watched the fat ball fly out with a shio sound. It drew a beautiful arc in the air before finally landing on the ground with a dong sound. Arbor's movements were also very fast. When the fat ball landed with a thud, She had already slapped the teleportation talisman on herself. She was already in front of the fat ball. Everyone was speechless. As expected, they saw someone's next move. He kicked the fat ball back again. That chubby ball rolled all the way to Mo Yin, Feng Changqing, and the others with a grunt. Only after Mo Yin lightly waved his sleeve did it stabilize its figure, and it rolled several times on the spot before coming to a stop. This fellow had been kicked back and forth until he was dizzy. Even though he had stopped, his head was still spinning in circles. A pair of small eyes stared blankly at the row of 8 people standing in front of him. His expression was as innocent as it could be. Fellow heroes, what you all doing? Xiao Mu strode up to the fat ball and flicked her fingers in the air, taking out a pure gold club with barbs from her inner world. What are you doing? The fat ball let out an ear-piercing shriek and immediately covered its chest with its hands, making an indescribably terrified expression. Arbor's face was cold. There's nothing in this world that can't be solved with a beating. Everyone was speechless. Sister-in-law's words make sense. What should we do? Princess Wushuang burst out laughing. Her eyes rolled, and she looked at the unlucky fatty on the ground with a smile. Old fatty. What old fatty? That fellow looked insulted. I have a name. Oh, may I know your name? Chapter 4468. This humble one is called Tian Tuzi. Everyone. They glanced at the bald patch of Mediterranean on the fat ball's forehead. They felt that this name was a bit strange. Baldy Tian, could it be that you're Senior Tianjizi's son? Princess Wushuang looked at him in astonishment. Arbor, who was slowly walking over, creased her elegant brows when she heard this. She stared at that person with an odd and severe gaze, and the barbed golden club in her hand suddenly grew larger. It weighed heavily in her hand. This large club looked too textured, scaring Tian Tuzi in a trembling nonstop. He repeatedly shouted, "Junior sister, junior sister. You don't act recklessly, junior sister. I'm your senior brother. Little junior sister." Everyone looked at the fat ball with strange gazes. This fellow was too fat. He struggled for a long time before he finally crawled up from the ground. His belly and waist were so thick that he couldn't even see his own feet when he stood on tiptoe in front of them. This fat ball, who was about the same height as a little girl and looked to be in his 50s, actually called her junior sister. This made the group of young masters feel disgusted, and at the same time, they had an impulse to beat him up. Is little junior sister someone you can randomly call out? What are you randomly calling out for? Who are you? I'm Tian Tuzi. Little junior sister, calm down, little junior sister, don't hit me. Tian Tuzi raised his hands pitifully and repeatedly shouted, "Little junior sister, I'm your senior brother, really. Senior brother, senior brother, senior brother. We're from the same sect, same origin, same master. Hey, don't hit me. My master is Tianjizi. You're not Senior Tianjizi's son. You're his disciple." And Wu Shuang and Arbor asked one after another. Tian Tuzi hastily nodded like a quail. I'm his disciple. No, I'm not his son, I'm not. As soon as he said this, everyone could feel the gloomy pressure of the chilly wind around them lessen considerably. The gloomy low pressure on Sir Jojo's body finally receded a little. "Why are you calling me junior sister? Confess honestly," the little stoic demanded coldly. Little junior sister, ever since you contracted with the Tianji treasure blueprint, I received your message, and half a strand of your consciousness. Arbor was stunned. His eyes became even gloomier. When did you take my soul consciousness? Her divine sense had unknowingly fallen into the hands of an unfamiliar person. What if he was used by others? Arbor could not imagine it. Mo Yin and He Chin's expressions turned even colder as they stared at the fat ball. "You have another copy of the Tianji treasure map? Why don't you take her consciousness?" No. This Tianji treasure map was created by his master. Master said that the power of the Tianji treasure blueprint was too great. So at that time, it was split into 2. The one in junior sister's hand is a child map. There's also a master map. It's been with Master for a long time. Wawa Master once said that not everyone can form a contract with the Tianji treasure blueprint. Innate talent is one, and bloodline is another. Junior sister, you not only have outstanding innate talent, but you must have some kind of bloodline connection with Master, right? Don't misunderstand. No, I didn't take half a strand of Junior sister's consciousness. It was absorbed by the master map when the Tianji treasure map was contracted. Junior sister is related to Master by blood. Chapter 4469. Moreover, she's Master's final disciple. We definitely won't harm her. The fat ball repeatedly waved his hands in agitation. Yin looked at him suspiciously. Why were you sneaking around just now? Speak. Princess Wushuang roared from the side, giving the fat ball a fright. He shrunk back and promptly confessed honestly, I sensed when he saw Ma Yingqian and Yin looking at him. This fellow shuddered and hastily said, No, it was I who discovered that the mother map of the Tianji treasure diagram sent something. I almost couldn't control that mother map and make it fly out of the tomb on its own. Tian Tuzi hastily said, So, I guess that little junior sister must have accidentally stumbled into Master's mystic realm. I was very agitated. I especially wanted to take a look at her. This fat ball timidly glanced at the little stoic and stammered, I don't have any ill intentions. I just wanted to stealthily take a few glances at little junior sister inside the invisibility formation. I wanted to confirm her identity first. He stammered as he spoke, but he still fully explained the cause of the incident. The little stoic said expressionlessly, Although I contracted the Tianji treasure diagram, I don't know the slightest bit about mechanisms and concealed weapons. At that time, she was completely clueless about the mechanisms and concealed weapons in the Tianji treasure diagram, so she threw it all to the two youths to learn. Speaking of which, Ancestor Tianji Zi's true disciples should be Yin and Duan Yu. Didn't that mean she had to slap these two idiots in the face? Only then could she fulfill Senior Xuanji's dying wish. The little stoic pondered it. It was still a bit difficult for her to slap these two people's faces. But although it was difficult, it didn't mean it was impossible. She had to slap their faces. She was a person who placed great importance on promises. She had to carry out her promise to the end and fulfill Senior Xuanji's dying wish. Our dear Yin stood on the side and inexplicably felt the temperature drop around her. There was a wisp of evil wind brushing past her boom. Caught off guard, Prince Mo was kicked in the butt by the little stoic, and he stumbled forward a few steps with a stupefied expression. He turned his head around and cried out aggrievedly, "What are you doing, wife?" And Wu Shuang and third young Master Fu were also dumbfounded as they stared at the person who had suddenly raised his foot to attack. On the other hand, the eyes of Ming Yasi and young Master Ding, who were watching from the side, lit up slightly, and they chuckled as they called out, "Haha, well done. I got beaten up." The little stoic didn't waste words with her husband. She rummaged around in her inner world, took out an ordinary rolling pin, and swung it at her husband's butt. What goes around comes around, and there's always this day. You didn't expect that there would be a day when you would be spanked by me. Why did he ask her? There was only one reason, and that was that it wasn't appropriate to beat him up anywhere. Let's slap her face. If we disfigure that beautiful face, we'll really be heartbroken. She couldn't hit his waist. A man's waist was very important. All he could do was hit his buttocks. I'm following Ancestor Xuanji's orders to beat Ancestor Tianjizi's disciple. This guy shouted as he beat him up. And Yin was extremely innocent, and she turned around to dodge as she ran. "Wife, that guy called you junior sister. Your Ancestor Tianjizi's personal disciple. We have the Tianjizi treasure blueprint as proof. Less nonsense? Are you convinced?" Arbor chased her husband back and forth with a rolling pin in his hand. "Don't even think about running away." Chapter 4470. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was about to choke from laughing. He clutched his stomach that hurt from laughing and repeatedly waved his hand. All right, quickly stop. I'm about to die from laughter. Junior sister, junior sister. Stop for a moment and listen to this older brother first. The atmosphere instantly became a bit distorted and strange. Tion Tuzi expressed that he truly couldn't understand. Hey, Baldy, hurry and make them stop. What's going on? Was it you? Was it this old punk who fed my sister-in-law some bewitching poison? Princess Wushuang grabbed the old punk's chest and berated him angrily. What, Baldy? Tion Tuzi's small eyes widened in anger from embarrassment. This humble one is Tion Tuzi. I'm telling you, I didn't do anything. Loosen. Miss, how can you be so rough? The little stoic chased after him with several large strides and swung her rolling pin at Emolien. Do you concede? Hurry and kneel down and kowtow to Ancestor Xuanji and shout 3 times that Tianjizi's disciple can't defeat Xuanji's disciple. Say you admit defeat and say you're wholeheartedly convinced. Hurry and speak, everyone. With a helpless expression, Prince Emo reached out and pulled the little fellow, who was bouncing after him, into his arms. Do you concede? The little stoic huffed beside his ear with a taut face. I concede. Emolien nodded repeatedly, exasperated. Tianjizi's disciple admits defeat and is wholeheartedly convinced. If you concede, then why are you running? The stoic faced him expressionlessly and said as if she was reading a book, truly traveling far and wide only to find what you're looking for without even looking for it. Everyone's mouths twitched. The little stoic continued to recite. I didn't expect that the successor of the Tianjizi treasure blueprint would be Tianjizi's personal disciple. You, present. Your husband is present. Emolien nodded as he revealed a resplendent smile. Wife, you tell me. I will beg for mercy when I should, kneel when I should, and lie down when I should. You can do whatever you want, as your husband is yours. Arbor's face did not fluctuate at all, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but raise from the bottom of his heart. Stop being so glib. She turned her head, and Emolien also turned her head to look at Pang Xiao. She threw him a gloating look. Senior Brother Baldy, good luck to you. I'm impressed. This brother also surrenders. Before Xiao Mu could make things difficult for him, Tion Tuzi, this guy, had no moral integrity at all and immediately surrendered by raising the white flag. What kind of joke was this? Could it be that it would look better to be beaten up by Junior's sister and then admit defeat? Get out of the way. Jojo. Sama slapped Emolien's paw to get him to let go. She turned around and cupped her hands in the direction of the horizon. She then said in a dignified manner, Ancestor Xuanji, your spirit in heaven must have seen this, right? I've completed the 3 things I promised you. In the future, we'll go our separate ways. If you don't come looking for me, I won't trouble you. After finishing his speech, this fellow raised 3 talisman papers in the air, which ignited and swayed without wind. The venerable peach blossom immortal floated to her side with a smile. The more he looked at this fellow, the more amused he was. He couldn't resist teasing. Jojo, were you burning Joss paper just now? What Joss paper? Talisman paper? Arbor gave him a sidelong glance and was in a rare mood to explain. Transmission talismans. She stretched out 2 fingers and gestured at the sky. Xuanji received it, so she definitely won't bother me again in the future. What taking care of the Dragon Clan? What helping the merfolk? Don't mention it again in the future. Chapter 4471. The venerable peach blossom immortal was slightly taken aback before chuckling cheerfully. He said softly, what a silly child. Your unilateral decision to draw a clear line between you and Ancestor Xuanji seems amusing, but in reality, it's filled with melancholy and helplessness. Who knows? When you meet the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness again, perhaps you'll meet with weapons. You've made it clear to Ancestor Xuanji long ago that they're completely separate. If you really do fight in the future, there's no need to restrain yourself. Don't worry, Senior Xuanji isn't that kind of dim-sighted person. If she knows in the netherworld, she definitely won't make things difficult for you. Shichin comforted him softly before turning to look at the fat ball, Tion Tuzi. I have something to ask you. Tion Tuzi shrunk his neck and hastily nodded. This one will definitely tell you everything he knows. Feel free to ask whatever your esteemed self wants. Little junior sister actually managed to find Master's mystic realm by chance. This is definitely fate. Little junior sister expressionlessly looked at him and splashed a bucket of cold water over him. It wasn't by chance. It was Senior Haiguang who guided me here. My trip this time was specifically to slap Ancestor Tianji's face. Tion Tuzi, little junior sister. Arbor spread her fingers. Don't call me that. Although I contracted the Tianji treasure blueprint, it's just a divine weapon to me. It's for my use. There are many theories on concealed weapons and mechanisms inside, and the learner is someone else. Ancestor Tianji's personal disciple is hubby. It's due on you. Tion Tuzi nodded repeatedly, but still asked, little junior sister, do you want to meet Master? Arbor was silent for a moment before slowly nodding. Okay. The Tianji treasure blueprint had saved her from danger several times. Speaking of which, Ancestor Tianji had unknowingly protected her more than once. Tion Tuzi instantly looked gratified and murmured, little junior sister and senior Xuanji also have a lot of connections? From what little junior sister said just now, she had completed the 3 things she promised. Presumably, little junior sister and senior Xuanji also had some kind of promise? Arbor didn't answer. Ichin curled his lips slightly and looked at the fat ball. Let me ask you, did you create a bunch of mechanical puppets in JoJo's style? After Ming Yasi, young Master Ding, Rong Qing, and the others fell into the secret realm, they had never seen a golem that looked like JoJo, so they naturally did not know about this matter. Hearing Yuan Shurchin's question, he looked at Arbor, who was standing at the side. Sir Jojo's expression did not change at all. His expression was calm and steady. Young Master Ding couldn't help but burst into laughter. Who the hell knew how much the stoic face was on the verge of a mental breakdown right now? How could anyone tell from his expression? You did it. Mo Yin's cold eyes stared at Tion Tuzi. Why aren't you telling the truth? Tion Tuzi nodded frantically. I'll confess. I didn't say I wouldn't confess. Those mechanical puppets were created by me. I think that Master will definitely like this little inner disciple. I made a few of them according to her half-wisp of divine sense. So that's how it was. Mo Yin mused inwardly. When Jojo contracted with the Tianji treasure blueprint, he was 12 years old. No wonder that bunch of Jajas were all at this age. After the more I made them, the smoother they became. Just Tion Tuzi peeked at little junior sister's expression and repeatedly said with a heavy heart, little junior sister, I didn't do it on purpose. These mechanical puppets originally weren't so nimble. After your half-wisp of divine sense floated out of Master's tomb. Chapter 4472. I don't know why, but they actually engraved a spiritual imprint on each golem's forehead. And then they acted like that. Little junior sister, why you didn't encounter them on your way here, did you? They're usually very obedient. Perhaps they were too excited to see you, otherwise they wouldn't have courted death in front of you. The fat ball's voice became lower and lower. Seeing little junior sister's expressionless face, he became more and more uncertain. Little junior sister's expression, was she happy or angry? How many? Lord Jojo grumpily roared at Tion Tuzi. 123. Tion Tuzi shrunk his neck, as if admitting his mistake. Why, little junior sister? Why, if you don't like them? Why, then you can melt them all. Tion Tuzi looked like he was about to cry when he said this. These years, guarding the Fecta hidden realm had been very hard and lonely. Ever since he had this group of lively little junior sisters, his days had become much more interesting. Although little junior sisters often went out to cause trouble, they didn't guard their master's mausoleum and wandered around the hidden realm. They also liked to plunder their master's hidden treasures and hide them in their own little treasury, causing him to have to move those things back to their master's mausoleum every few days. However, they were so full of life and vigor that it made people happy to see them. Little junior sister, they're just a little lively, but they're actually quite capable, Tion Tuzi hurriedly said. If you think they're noisy, then put them in your spatial artifact refining space. That way, they won't be noisy. Arbor glanced at him and suddenly threw out a purple talisman. Talisman light swirled, and the purple talisman brushed through the air, heading straight for the fat ball's face. Tion Tuzi's face was blank and pitiful, but his fat body moved quickly. Just as he was about to flash past, Arbor had already recalled the purple talisman flowing with light. You don't know talisman arts? Tion Tuzi cried out pitifully. Little junior sister, our master isn't a talisman master. Where would he learn talisman arts? Arbor nodded calmly. If her opponent was a talisman master, he would have unconsciously used a defensive talisman to block her attack. This was an instinctive action during a talisman master battle. Under such a fast battle, senior brother Pang Xiao could not react at all and would definitely carry out the most instinctive reaction to resist. However, the other party didn't. Instead, he quickly dodged. Arbor thought to himself, this senior brother Pang Xiao looks quite sincere. He shouldn't be the charm master who attacked everyone before. I'm sorry. The little stoic's probing was quick, but she was also quick to apologize. I previously discovered the existence of cursed practitioners in the mystic realm. Do you know about this? Tion Tuzi was a little stunned. Then he shook his head and nodded. Junior sister, although I don't know the origin of this charm master, as long as he is still in this secret realm, I have a way to find him. When the little stoic heard this, her eyes brightened slightly. How do we search? Master's mausoleum is in the main control room. You can see the entire situation in this secret realm. Does junior sister want to go now? Okay. Arbor nodded. They want to come with me. Of course, of course. This fat ball was naturally very sensible and nodded repeatedly. Although he had lived in seclusion for who knew how many years, he still understood some of the ways of the world. Chapter 4473. Although it was his master's mausoleum, he really shouldn't bring so many random people to disturb it. But since it was little junior's sister who suggested it, then he had no reason to object. Thinking about it, master shouldn't mind. Moreover, Tion Tuzi was very clear about his current situation. Not only did little junior's sister not trust him, little junior's sister's group of relatives and friends probably didn't trust him either. If he insensibly suggested to let everyone wait outside and only bring little junior's sister into the mausoleum, he reckoned that he would be beaten up when he turned around. This round fatty was still very good at observing people's expressions. Little junior's sister's husband wasn't someone to be trifled with. Those few young masters around her didn't seem to be good people. Either the arm couldn't win against the thigh. He better not seek his own death. Where is ancestor Tion Jizi's mausoleum? Everyone, please follow me. The round fatty took a few short steps and led the group forward. Arbor silently followed for a while and suddenly said expressionlessly, those mechanical puppets are all in the mausoleum? How did they run out? Tion Tuzi was stunned for a moment. Then he grinned and said, little junior sister, you're talking about those mechanical puppets? Arbor glanced at him, and Pang Xiao instantly felt a chill creeping towards his neck. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and said with a chuckle, those mechanical puppets, their temperaments are more lively. When they have nothing to do, they like to come out for a stroll. This isn't the first time they've come out of the mausoleum. This time, they probably felt the aura of a patron coming. Oh right, they especially like to rob people. Everyone's mouth twitched. Impossible. Arbor retorted him expressionlessly. Since they were branded by her divine sense, naturally, they should have the same temperament as her. Lively? What the hell was that, How often do they usually come out to rob? Arbor asked in a deep voice. Must see. Pang Xiao was frightened by little junior sister's gloomy expression and hurriedly confessed everything in one breath. Every time someone enters the mystic realm, little junior sister will plan and move out, leaving the mausoleum to rob. and Wushuang couldn't help but burst out laughing. Seeing her sister-in-law's gaze on her face, she pretended to raise her hand to cover her mouth, but the smile in her eyes could not be concealed. They built a secret little treasury. It's in the southeast of Master's mystic realm. Every few days, they would dig out the treasured weapons that Master had buried in the mausoleum and move them to their little treasury. Pang Chio stole a glance at the expressionless junior sister and continued stuttering. I saw that Master's mausoleum was really a little empty after being moved, so I moved the spirit treasure artifact back. Mo Lien tried not to smile. Ahem, is that so? You're clearly babbling nonsense, Xiao Mu icily stated. Am I that kind of person? Tian Tuzi cautiously glanced at his little junior sister and said in a trembling voice, Perhaps, little junior sister doesn't know your true temperament. Tian Tuzi's voice quietly lowered when he suddenly saw the little girl's cold gaze. Uffed, young Master Ding couldn't help but laugh. He nodded and said, I think Brother Baldy's words are not without reason. Everyone glanced at him. Reason my ass. Chapter 4474. Arbor took a step forward, his eyes brimming with vigor, and his small face was taut like a piece of iron. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the slope. It was as if he was ruthlessly stomping on the slope beneath his feet with Baldy's head. Tian Tuzi shuddered and pitifully followed her. He asked in a small voice, Is little junior sister angry? Princess Wushuang was overjoyed, and she cracked a smile. What do you think? You must have been remembered by sister-in-law. Not only will sister-in-law remember you, but my eldest brother definitely won't let you off either. The princess took pleasure in Fatty Baldy's misfortune and threw him a look that said, Good luck. Tian Tuzi only felt his entire body turn cold. When he turned his head, he saw Prince Imo staring at him icily. This guy instantly shuddered, and he hastily said honestly, Junior brother-in-law, you don't misunderstand. I didn't have any ill intentions when I built these golems, little junior sister. This pile of golems all had the appearance of 11 or 12-year-old children. They had small bodies and slightly large heads, and their facial features imitated little junior sister's appearance. Their small noses and small eyes were vivid and lifelike. However, it was only a 70-80% resemblance. It was still a distance away from little junior sister's current icy appearance. Mo Lien snorted. If you really harbored any ill intentions, would you still be standing here alive? The fat Baldy shuddered and felt a chill run down his spine. Subconsciously, he moved to the side of his junior sister to hide. Junior sister, now that elder brother has confessed everything, can you forgive elder brother? The little stoic turned to look at him. I came here on Ancestor Xuanji's last wish. Originally, as Qianjizi's disciple, I would definitely beat you up when I saw you. Don't hit, little junior sister. I'm convinced, I'm truly convinced. Don't hit me. Fat Baldy cried out pitifully with a long face. The girl gave him a look that said, You're very smart. While she walked forward, she said without batting an eyelid, Did you just say that the group of mechanical puppets made a small treasury? That's right. The fat Baldy pointed in the southeast direction, and an idea suddenly flashed in his mind. Little junior sister, do you want to take a look? It's not impossible, the little stoic replied stiffly. The corner of the fat Baldy's mouth twitched slightly. He immediately understood what the little ancestor meant. He nodded repeatedly and said, After we become Master's disciples, I will take you to that little treasury for a stroll. Yes, it's not far ahead. The fat Baldy wiped his sweat and walked forward with his short, fat legs. Junior Marshall's sister, look, it's just up ahead. Arbor looked in the direction bald Fatty was pointing, and all he could see was a blur. It was as if he had reached the border of the secret territory. He couldn't see clearly with his naked eye. Everyone reflexively used their divine senses to explore that gray fog. They saw a mausoleum carved from white jade that was currently being repaired on a dozen or so flights of stairs. It was located at the center of the gray fog. What an amazing 9-labyrinth maze formation, Mo Lien murmured. Tion Tuzi immediately turned his head around, beaming with delight. Junior brother-in-law, you're quite knowledgeable about mechanisms and formations, right? Let's have an exchange later when we're free, all right? Emolian glanced at him and nodded slightly. Sure. Tion Tuzi immediately danced with joy. This guy had already forgotten the days and months in the Tianji secret realm. Chapter 4475. How could he not be happy when he finally found a kindred spirit who was well-versed in formations and mechanisms? Everyone follow me. Tion Tuzi turned his head and beckoned. Just as he was about to step into the gray fog, his expression suddenly froze. Not good. Someone has barged into the formation. Arbor raised his brow. With a slight movement of his finger, an attack talisman slid into the gray fog. It was like a clay ox entering the sea, never to return. There wasn't the slightest ripple. The joking expression on Tion Tuzi's face vanished. A hint of anger and murderous intent appeared on his chubby face. Who is so audacious as to attempt to barge into Master's mausoleum? Let's go in and take a look. Arbor urged with a frown. That delicate woman's face inexplicably appeared in his mind. An ordinary person without any cultivation leading a group of cultivators into the mystic realm? Why did he feel like he had seen this kind of person somewhere before? A spark of inspiration seemed to flash through the depths of the little stoic's mind, and her footsteps abruptly halted. Chow chow. Emolian also stopped in his tracks with a puzzled expression. Husband, I have an idea. Who exactly does that person resemble? Which person? That Miss Mu Xiaoxue. Arbor followed the fat baldy into the gray fog formation. As soon as everyone entered the formation and sensed the thick fog surging in from all directions, they saw Tion Tuzi suddenly jump forward. He threw out 17 to 18 pebbles in succession, and after a series of extremely fast strikes, he determined their location by listening to their sounds. The thick fog in front of them rolled away at an even faster speed than when it came, like a receding tide. The white jade stairs were right in front of them. It looked like it was only a few steps away, but they discovered that the scenery was completely different when they climbed up. The space here was very ingenious and seamless, making it impossible for people to see any disharmony. A lush forest appeared before everyone's eyes. There were fresh flowers and fruit trees on both sides, and there was a white jade stone path in the middle that led straight to the end of the mausoleum. Who are you? Such audacity, daring to directly enter the nine-palace mausoleum formation and break through a third of it? If he hadn't arrived swiftly, would these people really have wanted to barge into Master's mausoleum? I was too careless. I didn't expect that there would be an array master among the people who entered the secret realm this time. Xiao Mu pulled Emolian's hand in a few steps and dashed up the white jade steps, arriving before a wordless stele. The corners of his mouth suddenly rose slightly, as if he had seen something interesting. His eyes were fixed on a young girl standing in front of the monument. The young girl had a delicate appearance, and her watery eyes were clear. Looking at her, she was like a little flower that was not tainted by dust, gently swaying in the wind. It was as if the little stoic was staring at her prey, and a glint flickered in her watery eyes. So similar. They really look alike, she muttered in a low voice. Her eyes were frighteningly bright. Everyone glanced at her and felt that the little stoic's current expression was a bit strange. Emolian was even more worried. She shook his hand and said, Jojo, take her down. Arbor suddenly flicked his wrist, and a slender, long, and smooth white snake swiftly slithered. It suddenly scuttled up and opened its huge mouth in the air. Its icy eyes stared fixedly at the girl who had turned pale with fright and had abruptly bit her. A pitch-black figure abruptly blocked in front of the girl. He held a broad-mouthed black saber that flickered with a dazzling light. This saber was clearly not an ordinary item. Under the great void serpent's powerful bite, the saber merely bent slightly. Chapter 4476. Hiss! The snake's cold tongue slid away from the blade, and it opened its mouth again, biting at the old man's left shoulder with its sharp teeth. The old man in the black robe opened his hand and set up an arc-shaped defensive wall, protecting Mu Xiaoxue behind him. His eyebrows were completely knitted together, and he shouted, "How dare you!" Crack! The old man's eyes showed a trace of fear. He didn't expect that the defensive wall he set up with his own hands would have a crack the width of a finger after being bitten by the giant snake. He had never seen such a terrifying snake. No, there was definitely something wrong with this snake. "It's a sacred beast." A calm voice came from behind. "Get out of the way." Chi. The giant snake tilted its head, and a black smoke came out of its mouth. The golden crown on its head also tilted slightly with its movement. "Be careful." A few blue talismans flew in front of the old man in the black robe. With one block, the blue talismans were immediately riddled with holes in the black smoke and completely lost their function and fell to the ground. "It's really easy to get all of these." Xiao Mu's frigid voice abruptly rang out, and with a light flick of her sleeve, several hundred talismans flew out and formed a large circle, trapping the black-robed elder and the others inside the talisman matrix. The old man in the black robe's face was incomparably cold and dark. He slapped his palm over and hit the confinement talisman array, but was immediately bounced back and took a step back. "Elder Zhuang." Mu Xiaoxue's face was full of shock, and she hurriedly reached out to support the old man in the black robe. Arbor looked at them coldly through the confinement talisman array. His gaze swept across the faces of Mu Xiaoxue, Zhao Yi, Gu Yixuan, and the old man in the black robe. Finally, his gaze fell on the face of a pale-faced, gloomy-looking man in his late 20s to the right of Mu Xiaoxue. "Grand Talisman Master?" Arbor's mouth curved slightly. He leaped into the air and flew out of the confinement talisman array. Clusters of flames flickered in his eyes, and he stared coldly at the other party. "If you can take 3 of my talismans, I'll spare your life." The first talisman jumped out, emitting a trace of purple light. Seeing this, Luo He's pupils constricted slightly as he looked at the little girl in front of him in disbelief. The girl looked to be about the same age as the young miss, but she took out a purple talisman at this moment. This jade talisman flew towards him, and a thick talisman power immediately enveloped his body. This feeling was puppet runes? Luo He's eyes darkened, and he couldn't help but tighten his body instinctively. He immediately threw out several dispelling talismans from his sleeves. However, it was useless. The purple light of the puppet charm suddenly disappeared into his body. Mu Xiaoxue cried out in fear, "Brother Luo!" Luo He's body trembled fiercely. Then, he hurriedly slapped a mind-cleansing talisman on his head. Several times in a row, the mind-clearing talisman was sent into his mind one by one to resolve the sudden puppet curse. Luo He was naturally very surprised. He was actually unable to avoid that puppet talisman. In fact, he couldn't even solve it within a few minutes. If he couldn't unravel the puppet talisman within a quarter of an hour, then unfortunately, he would really be controlled by the puppet talisman. Of course, he couldn't let this happen. Luo He's face was filled with fury. He raised his head to look in Arbor's direction, and a malicious, cold light flashed through his eyes. Since he couldn't unravel this puppet talisman for the time being, then he could only completely kill this stoic-faced little girl in front of him and use it to break this talisman spell. Chapter 4477. A cold glint flashed through this person's eyes. How could Arbor not see this clearly? Seeing that he was about to kill her, Arbor only curled her lips coldly, her eyes full of mockery. "Little girl, you don't know that there's always someone better than you." Luo He sneered and suddenly flicked his fingers. 2 talismans that also emitted a purple glow abruptly appeared in his hands. Arbor's eyes emitted a trace of mockery. She unhurriedly raised her hand and lightly patted herself. She then turned to wave her small hand at Emolien and Ma Shichen, who were frowning slightly. "Don't worry, watch the show." Prince Amo was a bit worried. After all, This great talisman caster in front of them didn't look weak in talisman power. However, the little stoic gestured at her to not worry and turned to hook her finger at Luo He. Come. Life-seizing talismans look much more advanced than low-level mystic talismans. Luo He's eyes turned, and a sneer surfaced on his lips. What a conceited little girl. Then try this life-seizing talisman. Let's see if the defensive purple talisman on your body can defend against my... Before he finished speaking, he had already flung out the life-seizing talisman in his hand. He had no intention of continuing to waste words with the little stoic. 2 purple lights flew past, directly piercing through the air. Luo He sneered as he stared at Arbor, inwardly cursing. Damn girl, do you think life-seizing talismans are so simple? This was a double life-seizing talisman that he had carved out with great difficulty after many years of practice. Even if she had a defensive talisman on her body, it was impossible for her to come out unscathed. Luo He stared at Arbor's pitch-black eyes that were as deep as a lake. His gaze suddenly fell between her brows, and he saw a faintly discernible golden light before disappearing from his sight. Luo He's heart immediately skipped a beat. He inexplicably felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Luo He only felt his heart beating like a drum. Thump, 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 thump. That sound was so loud that it almost ruptured his heart. No, golden talisman. It was a sacred grade golden talisman. The little stoic placed a sacred grade golden talisman on her body just now. It wasn't a purple talisman, but a sacred grade golden talisman. Furthermore, it didn't seem to be a pure defensive talisman. Double talisman. It was a double talisman. Yes, Luo He's heart skipped 18 beats as he couldn't help but roar out, Protect, Xiao Shui. He hurriedly turned around and cast a talisman in Mu Xiaoshue's direction, his brows furrowed. Mu Xiaoshue was shocked. The black-robed old man beside her quickly shook his arm and erected a defensive barrier around Mu Xiaoshue. In the blink of an eye, the 2 purple talismans that Luo He had shot out earlier had already arrived in front of Arbor. Purple light overflowed and talisman power flowed. However, a strange sneer brushed past the little stoic's lips. The little girl did not get hurt as she had expected. She raised her dark eyes and looked at Mu Xiaoshue coldly. Puchi. 2 soft sounds were heard. Mu Xiaoshue and Luo He both spat out a mouthful of blood. Little junior sister. Zhao Yi and Gui Xuan were so shocked that their guts were about to burst. Zhao Yi even hugged his little junior sister and howled like he was wailing at a funeral. The little stoic's icy gaze swept over Mu Xiaoshue and Luo He. In the end, her gaze settled on Luo He, whose mouth was dripping with blood, and she mocked. What deep devotion! Luo He held back a mouthful of blood and opened his mouth to speak, but he truly couldn't endure it. He immediately spat out another mouthful of blood with a wah. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Chapter 4478. Luo He, what's going on? Gui Xuan supported Mu Xiaoshue's drooping hand and anxiously glanced at his little junior sister. Just a moment ago, after Mu Xiaoshue spat out a mouthful of blood, her face had turned deathly pale and she had fallen into a coma. Everyone was startled by this unforeseen event and hastily supported the little princess in a flurry. If anything happened to the little princess, they really wouldn't be able to account to the First City Lord when they returned. Luo He's expression was also very unsightly. Because of his miscalculation, Miss Xiao Shui was injured instead. This made him feel somewhat embarrassed and disheveled. It's a substitute talisman. Luo He gnashed his teeth and cursed. She used a substitute talisman. He was careless and simply didn't see when the little stoic used that substitute talisman. A sacred grade gold substitute talisman. It could help the owner replace all of the attack power with 100%. This meant that the power of the 2 double life-reaping talismans he had previously used had all been directed at Miss Xiao Shui. If he hadn't reacted at the last minute and had Elder Zhuang set up a barrier to protect her, he would have been severely injured. In addition, He had used a rebound talisman on Miss Xiao Shui at the critical moment and absorbed most of the power into his body. If it weren't for this series of remedial actions, the current Miss Xiao Shui would probably be an ice-cold corpse instead of a heavily injured one. Luo He's eyes were bloodshot as he clenched his fists tightly and stared fixedly at the indifferent young lady in front of him. His fingers trembled as he coldly pointed at her and angrily shouted, "What a vicious and vicious girl!" Luo He was so angry that he couldn't continue speaking. Gu Yishuan anxiously urged, "What exactly happened? Luo He, why aren't you saying anything? What exactly happened just now?" This girl, used a substitute talisman just now and viciously transferred all of the attack power of the two life-reaping talismans to Miss Xiao Shui. What? Zhao Yi, Gu Yishuan, and the other City of Shadows disciples clamored in anger. "She's truly a vicious woman. Our little junior sister is only an ordinary person without the slightest bit of cultivation. You attacked an ordinary person. Do you still have any dignity? How shameless!" Mo Lien sneered with a cold face. "Everyone's meaning is that this crown prince's wife should obediently accept your life-stealing talisman and not resist?" Third young Master Fu could not help but sneer. "What kind of pig brain can say such a thing? Can you not be so disgusting?" And Wushuang couldn't help but roll her eyes. She pointed at Luo He and said coldly, "Especially you. Why are you acting so pitiful? Master Talisman, you are the one who put the puppet talisman on the others, right? Why do you want to control those people? You can't deal with my sister-in-law now, so who can you blame? That's because you used too much talisman energy to control so many puppets." Luo He still wanted to say something, but a wave of qi and blood surged in his body, forcing him to shut his mouth and secretly adjust his breathing. "Don't change the topic," Gu Yishuan shouted angrily. "Arbor, you're becoming more and more immoral. Say it yourself. You attacked an ordinary and weak girl who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Are you worthy of being addressed as your excellency? You're unruly and willful, bullying the weak.